and welcome to Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forum.
And this is Parker, go by Dr. Mantis Toboggan on forums.
Good God.
This
is Jermagar Constagon clocking back in.
Yeah.
Doctor is in the house.
He's back from outer space. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, this is where I talk again. So, quick announcements. Parker, you have 34 episodes of probation remaining.
Woohoo!
That Blade episode really costed you.
That clock is a-ticking.
Yeah. All right. Parker, take us into it.
News. It's news time.
News.
All right, so we got some news today. Our favorite Dhampir, the commander, or at least our first leader for the Infinity Watch. We have cards. We have his card. And no, I'm not going to say his name, but we all know it. It rhymes with Cade.
Parker, it's your responsibility to read the card.
Okay. His name is Eric Brooks.
Okay. I never knew that. Honestly, I had no idea.
I did not either, because in all the movies, Chris Christopherson only calls him Blade. Whoops, I did it, but I don't care. It was for the joke.
Back to 35.
It was
back to 35.
It was for the joke.
Back to 35, Parker.
But Chris Christopherson only ever calls him that, which makes him wonder. But he never calls him Eric. So there you go. Eric Brooks is 6 health on both sides. He's 4-cost character. He moves medium. He's got 4 physical defense, 3 energy, and 4 mystic. He's pretty tough stats wise. He has a katana that is not a physical attack. It is a mystic attack, which I love because, of course, it's made of silver.
Because it's silver and garlic.
Yeah,
That's why.
I love it. I love that. After this attacker, so it's range 2, 5 dice. You get power for all the damage dealt. It automatically gives bleed, and it has pierce on a wild.
Question?
Yes.
Do you know that if the movies are actually accurate to the comic books, are his swords like magical in nature, maybe, and that's why it's mystic, and we're just assuming that the movie was real?
No, the movie is my favorite version of the character,
right?
Because of how awesome it is. I love those movies.
Yeah, it's just like badass turned up to 11. But I don't know how accurate it is.
Yeah, I don't. I've only ever seen him in comics, like with other characters, like he shows up with Spider-Man or Daredevil or Morbius or he's an Avenger actually in recent comics. So like I've never seen like a standalone comic of his, so I do not know if they are actually magical or not. I thought they were just swords, but
so that's my thought. Either it's because they're silver, which means they work against vampires, or
silver works
like
against werewolves.
Enchanted.
Yeah,
it works against vampires too.
Does it? Is it special against vampires?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
What did? That's like the whole premise of the movie.
No.
like silver beats vampires. Looks like literally how they kill them at the end.
Oh, that's right, because
Anyway.
the silver dust.
The silver,
yeah. You're right.
Anyway.
I just looked it up. Silver is seen as effective against impure forces of any kind. So anything unholy, silver is good against. Yeah. Okay.
That's why the joke is silver bullets. Like,
Right.
I'm like a monster hunter, so you use silver bullets. You're like, well, there's more to it than that. It's like, so you use silver bullets.
Yeah, I don't know. I always get silver associated with werewolves.
Because the movie Silver Bullet.
Yeah. Anyway,
I just like 80s feel-good movies about kids in wheelchairs. So
There you
that's
go.
why I like Mac and Me and Silver Bullet.
every time I think of Mac and Me, I think of the
McDonald's commercial.
Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Paul Rudd on Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
I loved when they edited in all the Ant-Man stuff.
Yeah.
They fucking CGI'd in Ant-Man to Mac and Me.
Yeah.
So you could play it on the fucking show.
Yeah.
It was so good. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, you should just Google Paul Rudd pranks Conan.
Yeah.
It's great.
So his second attack is actually a physical attack, so these must not be silver. They're throwing glaives, range 4, 4 dice, and he gets a power for doing it, and it has bleed on a wild. And then finally, his coolest attack, another mystic attack, Knight of the Dhampir. It is range 3, 7 dice, 4 cost. If the target character has bleed already, you can reroll any number of dice. It also gives bleed, and after this attack is resolved, the character may advance medium. That's a lot of cool stuff for 4 if the person's already bleeding. So the first thing I thought of is obviously he can do it himself if you hit him with a katana, or if you get the wild on the throwing glaives, so he doesn't need anybody to help, but anybody else that gives bleed could be cool. I was thinking somebody like Drax could be funny because they both get to reroll stuff on bleed, helping each other, being bleed buddies. I think it'd be funny. Are there any other fun ways to get bleed other than just getting hit by a knife in this game? I think that's about it, right?
There's a lot of ways you can give out bleed. Are you talking about ways without attacking people?
Yeah.
Hold on. Richard, for some reason, is spam messaging me.
I think the only way is just to get cut by somebody with a sword or something.
No, there's other ways. Well, actually, now that I say that, I think Whims of Chaos might not give out bleed. Let's say that's one way you can hand out effects without.
Burn effects. Yes, anything that causes burns also is like a bleed. So I'm pretty sure,
Mm-hmm.
but it also could cause incinerate now. But
yeah, no. Whims of Chaos does not do bleed. It only does incinerate.
Crystal does. Crystal, I think, does incinerate only. I don't think she does a bleed.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody does bleed without attacking you. I know. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of attacks that do bleed, but
Hawkeye is one of the best ones.
yeah, Hawkeye's a good one.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, he has to attack you, but yeah, it's still good. It's easy to get out fast.
You get shot by Hawkeye and then you run away. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I googled glaive because I wanted to make sure I'm not like going crazy. But do you guys know what a glaive is? Okay. So explain to me what a throwing glaive is.
Yeah,
I was unaware that these were thrown weapons.
Right. So a glaive is like a spear.
Throwing chainsaw. You're like, is that different than a normal chainsaw? I don't understand.
Right. So a glaive is like a polearm weapon. It's usually like a long.
Yeah,
it looks like a machete on the end of a stick. Yeah.
Yes, it's a heavy bladed sword on the end of a staff.
Mm-hmm.
They're not generally thrown at people. I think the joke is they're referencing the movie Kroll, which had the glaive in it, which was basically a 8-pointed throwing star that had little daggers on each point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is basically just a modified version, because in the movie he has a double-bladed one. It's basically got a handle in the middle and then 2 curved daggers on each end.
Yeah,
he throws it.
Yes,
he throws it like a batarang.
Yeah, I believe it does it in the famous nightclub scene, right? Does he throw
it? Yeah.
And like
he throws it, and it like comes back to him.
Yeah, I think it's 100% like just that. I don't know if it's in the comics.
I think someone saw the movie Kroll and was like, "That's badass. Put that glaive in our movie." And he's like, "You know that's not a glaive, right?" And he's like, "Shut up." Like that was basically how the situation went.
They call it a throwing glaive because it's basically a short pole with like the butcher knives on the end.
Very, very short pole.
A very short
it's
pole.
Like 3 inches
you
long.
could say it's just a really short glaive.
Okay, so how do you explain the machetes that are only 2 inches long?
I don't think we need to go any further in our analysis.
I think we could just stop at
pretty sure
short
throwing glaive is what the technical term probably.
I'm just super psyched that we managed to reference Kroll in this episode. Just 10 stars.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about how Spaceballs was a ripoff of Star Wars. Kroll was a ripoff of Star Wars. like 100%. The Mel Brooks movie is a mockumentary of like it's a spoof of Star Wars, obviously, but that's obviously parody. Like Kroll was legitimately just trying to move in on their space. Like, we got a hairy guy, and he's strong too, and he's like our co-pilot. Like, what is happening? Our plucky good guy has to get the weapon to defeat the bad guy, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. Like, it's this weird combination of like fucking Wizard of Oz and Star Wars. I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Oh man, at the time it was amazing. That's all I know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I've known some people that were huge diehard Kroll fans. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? All right.
Blade is. Could you go Blade?
Go ahead and finish up the card.
Okay. So he has the affiliation for the Midnight Suns, a leadership ability that we've talked about, Bump of the Night. So once per turn, any allied character's activation, it can spend 1 power. If it does, place that character within 1 of its current position. So we can place within 1. We talked a little bit about that last time. A new power we didn't know about, which I love so much, Half-Blood Physiology. For 1 power, this character immediately performs a shake action. I just love that.
Not bad. Hold on a second. Let me check. Continue talking about this, though.
Okay. The first thing I thought was, does that remove stagger?
That's what I'm
Yes,
checking.
it does.
Because stagger says...
Is it confirmed, or
It
is
is
that
confirmed.
Just okay.
Cool. That's really cool. For our first character who is, if he has his power, he's functionally immune to 1 effect on him.
Did they clarify why it breaks timing?
No, it was just ruled that way and closed.
Okay. Because the wording on Stacker is when the character activates, it must spend its first action to shake. And so my understanding would be as soon as you activate Stagger triggers, so you don't have an opportunity to use an ability, but I wish they would clarify the reasoning for that then. If we're going to do these dumbass reroll rules, then they need to at least follow the timing chart.
I don't know. It gets me every time. There's a lot of timing stuff popping up in the forums now.
There's a lot of just there seems to be a lot of this it works this way, just go with it kind of like timing explanations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I get that it's like intended to work this way, but if you're not going to change the wording, but then you're also going to like enforce dumb timing on shit that shouldn't happen, it just seems confusing to me. I wonder if we're going to get like a big errata document soon or something. There seems to be a lot of these little ones that need to be cleaned up.
For true.
Next.
Another ability that we didn't know about, Supernatural Senses for 2 power, when this character is defending against a physical or mystical, so no energies, but if it's a physical or mystical, after rolling its defense dice, it may use the superpower. The character then re-rolls any number of its defense dice, including skulls. So he can re-roll skulls if it's a physical or mystic attack for 2 powers. Pretty cool.
Is it just me, or is mystic or energy becoming even more important to have in your list? It seems like energy attacks are getting better and better.
Yeah, there are a lot of characters that seem to be getting...
I mean, Mysterio, Carnage, and this guy are all like noticeably weaker against energy.
Mm-hmm.
They're making sure that Wolverine never gets played again. That's what they're doing.
Well, Wolverine isn't weak to energy.
No, but everybody has Mystic.
Oh.
Oh, you mean well, that's on offense. I'm just talking about defense. Like I feel like, but like psychic is the worst damage type because there's so many people that are basically immune to it. Like how many people have a mystic defense of 5? It's crazy.
It's a weird number.
Mm-hmm. We have 1 character in the game with a defensive stat over 4 that isn't mystic, and it's Carnage, who is 1/1 in the other 2.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 7 or 8 people that have like Mystic 5 or better.
Or Mystic 6. A lot of them are Mystic 6.
Yeah, there's multiple Mystic 6 people. And a lot of those people also have extra defensive abilities.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird how hard it is to hurt like a lot of the characters in the game with Mystic. And a lot of those characters are also premium characters. Like they're the really good ones. You see a bunch. Yeah.
I think there's actually more characters with Mystic above 4 than below 3. Which is nuts. Anyway, go ahead and do the rest of his stuff.
His very last one is a passive power, Vampiric Immortality. They mentioned this in the panel to play. It didn't really specify it, but this is how it works. At the end of his activation, he always gains 1 power and removes a damage for each other character within 2 that has bleed. So if you can get bleed splashed all around him, he really does a lot of healing and extra power.
Yeah, I like this ability. It's good that it happens at the end of his activation. That was the only thing we weren't sure about in the spoilers.
Yeah, I really like it a lot. I think it's super cool.
Jeremy, do you have an overall mouthfeel on Blade?
Very, very, very strong 4-threat character. We haven't had one of these in a long time. Like this guy is very balanced. He's he can throw some offense. He's got some cool stuff in his kit. He can hold his own against pretty much anybody, and he's got a really good leadership. I mean, what more do you want from a 4? I mean, this guy's pretty tight.
Yeah, the only possible downside I see to him is the lack of mobility, which he obviously has bump in the night if he's running the Midnight Suns, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to deliver him. It's mainly, though, the only having a weakness to energy is pretty strong, because there's not that many energy damagers that are going to hit you before you get in and do your stuff. Yeah, I like him. I think he's good.
I also really like that he just gets a lot of passive just goodness from doing the thing he already does, which is cause a lot of bleed. In this game, there's a ton of bleed. We talked about how there's a lot of bleed in the game, but you have to wait for the next turn for bleed to do something. It is a pretty strong effect because not everybody will shake it, and against some certain characters, it's amazing because they'll start getting dollared to death if they're really defensive. But the fact that Blade also is in re-rolling his big attack, healing, getting extra power just from being around that is another way to capitalize on that bleed effect. I like debuffs in this game, and they're not super prevalent, but I like one more character who makes, penalizes your opponent for leaving their debuffs up.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really cool interaction. All right, what is up next, Parker?
Next is, I believe in terms of timing, it was the Ancient One. So one of the things we were going to talk real fast as a segue before we get into the Ancient One. They've changed panel play. Panel plays used to be just blurbs, non-specifically, sometimes capitalizing, sometimes not, information about characters, and it was kind of difficult to discern, the accuracy of them. So they went ahead and did away with that, and now they're doing panel plays with exactly the same old fluffy stuff, and then they're just putting the cards in there. So
at least that's what they've done this week.
Yes. So starting with the Ancient One, at least, hopefully forever, I would love this to be just the way it works. The Ancient One, we got his panel play and his cards at the same time. So for the sake of the fact that the panel plays, we're just looking for the information about it anyway, we're just going to go straight to his card. So Ancient One's card, my favorite, perhaps my new favorite alter ego. The Ancient One's alter ego is the Ancient One.
Solid.
Might be my new favorite alter ego.
We have to do a new top 3 list.
Yeah. He's androgynous. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, we don't know which character they're referencing.
Right.
But because the clothing and face seem to match the MCU version, I'm actually assuming it's a woman.
Yeah.
But I like to assume things, so
right.
Whatever.
Anyway, she, we're not sure.
I don't know that that's the best way to approach this. Parker.
Okay, I'll say the androgynous,
the Ancient One,
the Ancient One. Yeah,
Parker's just stepping on some fucking landmines today. He's like a bulldozer.
I don't think I'm out of line here when I do not understand the gender of this thing. So I don't want to assume.
We got Thing. We got it.
It says her.
This is amazing. Where does it say her?
Where?
Rely on the physical
Does it say it in
strength
the
of
panel?
her
Oh, there it is.
to
In
damage
the panel
her
play, it
opponent.
says her.
We did it.
Use
There
the
you go.
words.
Okay.
When you assume, Parker makes an ass out of himself.
That's not how you spell assume. That's not how you spell assume.
Pretty sure Parker is in assume.
That's not how you spell
I'll
assume.
find it.
All right, so she has six health on both sides. She's a 4-cost character. She moves medium. She has 2 physical defense, 3 energy defense, and 5 mystic defense. Again, another character with huge mystic defense. She has 3 mystic attacks. The first one is range 2, 5 dice. She gets power, and it has Pierce and a Wild. The second one is a 3 range, 4 dice. She gets 1 power for doing it, and if the attack deals damage, the target character gains poison. And then the last attack is range 2 also, 8 dice for 4 power. The defending character does not add crit results to its success and cannot roll additional dice because of crits. Also, if the attack deals damage, it is the target immediately gets staggered. So
I would like to say at this point, when reading the card the first time, is when I started paying attention. Because up to this point, I was like, blah, 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 wizard lady, blah, 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 robes, blah, what? Stagger automatically and no crits. You have my attention. Yeah, this is a very, very good attack.
Yeah. Also, very interesting, it's range 2. Not a lot of. I don't know how many spender attacks there are in the game that aren't range 3. There's almost all of them are range 3.
No, there's a lot of 2s. There are a higher percentage of attacks that are range 3 of the spenders than of the strikes, but there are a lot of spending short range attacks. I do want to say about the Fangs of Farlan. Farlan? I don't know how you say it.
Farla.
Anyway.
It's an H.
Farla?
Yeah.
Is it an H? Okay, it's really blurry on my screen. So it's the Farley, right?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay,
yeah.
Fangs of Farley. Okay, it just looks like an N on my screen.
It's the same as the mists or whatever.
Right. That's Vapors of Valtor.
Oh, yeah. So which one is the Farla?
It is the Pentagram of Farley.
That's right, Pentagram, yeah.
Yeah. So these are the Fangs of Faraway. And then... so anyway, about the Fangs of Farley attack. If this attack deals damage, you get poison. Poison actually is very annoying for most characters because they don't generate multiple power. So that 1 power a turn sometimes is a lot. And it's a long-term effect that people aren't going to generally shake. And so you can actually... This might be a really good character to kind of add into that, like, Asgardian, like, stall list where you don't really attack people. Because getting poison out on those people in a mission where they have to interact with objectives is very punishing. I do want to say, though, also... poison, because we haven't really had a lot of characters do poison, that I don't think people have realized how good it is. Also, though, there are 3 times more people immune to poison than any other effect, it feels like.
Yeah.
Like, everyone seems to be immune to poison. All the Hulks, all the Inhumans, all the robots. It's very annoying.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know that the robots are immune to poison.
If you have a cybernetic part, you're pretty much immune to humans. Immune to poison. Immune to humans. Immune to humans.
Easy there, Ultron.
I think even Cable is immune to poison because he has a metal arm, I think.
Is he?
Pretty sure he is.
That does not sound right.
I was staring at his card the other day, and I'm pretty sure it says, yep, immune to poison.
What?
He is immune to poison.
That's probably because the technovirus, though, right?
Yeah, because viruses make you immune to poison. It's because he has a metal arm, I think.
It's an obvious.
Viruses make you immune to poison.
Don't be stupid.
I heard if you get chicken pox, you can just drink bleach.
Single greatest response. Ultron is immune to poison.
Yeah.
Iron Man's not, though, right? But he's obviously just in a suit. He's a
man. So if you get the poison through the eye slits, he's done.
Yeah,
for.
you get him through the eye little eyes. I like to imagine Viper just walks up and spits acid in his face. He's like, my eyes, and just crumbles.
But if he does with Cable blocks it with his metal arm, and then how do you stop it? Because its arm is metal, it can't be poisoned.
I'm pretty sure it's the mastery of his own body through the resistance to the technovirus.
I'm pretty sure it's the
if
single
just
metal
a metal arm gives you immune to poison, but a fully encased suit with life support doesn't, I refute your statement.
I'm pretty confident.
I will come to your house.
The logic in this game clearly shows.
Yeah.
Anyway,
continue with the abilities, please.
The ancient one. She has the Miss of Hoggoth, which is 2 power. Place this character within 2 of its current position, only used once. So she has her own place, which is super cool.
She's more mobile than Blade.
Winds of Watum, which is a playoff of Wands of Watum, which is a famous relic in the Marvel Universe. Cost 3. When this character is targeted by an attack, it may use the superpower, push the attacking character towards her short. So when she is attacked, she pulls people towards her, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that will become obvious later.
Yeah.
Continue.
The last one. Second to last one. Keeper of the Eye of Agamotto. So before Strange got it, so did she had it, and it's a permanent passive. When this character is making a defense or dodge roll, it may re-roll up to 2 of its defense or dodge dice. Additionally, during the power phase, she gains an extra power. And then this combined with the last one, which is Martial Artist, which we know if she is attacked with a physical or energy within range 2, she can add blanks. So the thing about the Winds of Watum to remember is it's when this character is targeted by an attack, so it's not after the attack resolves. So if somebody is attacking her from far enough away where Martial Artist would not proc, if she has enough power, she can Winds and Watum them towards her, and then she'll get benefit of Martial Artist as well as the Keeper of the Eye of Agamotto to reroll dice. So she will, even though she only has 2 physical defense, she dodges more often than she should. one of those characters that basically you should expect her to usually dodge 1 or 2. But if your opponent, explodes dice on her, she will, you'll not be able to, she's probably not going to get, 2 crits, on the 2 dice.
I do want to say I think it's very important they did not give her the ability to reroll skulls. That obviously would have been much stronger on this character than other characters. Yeah, I think she's really interesting. I think the thing that people are going to use her for eventually is going to be much more like a Mysterio model, where it's more of a scenario piece than a combat model. Because her Winds of Watoomb is actually fairly similar, to Tricks and Traps on Mysterio, where if you move up to him, he gets to maybe move away from you. As where this is kind of just in reverse. If you're standing on a point and you attack me, I can pull you off the point.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's your second action, that's going to mess up your scenario. And then I can just move back to the point. Or if I move you off the point, then you have to use your second action to walk back to it. It's very inefficient for you. And I get to use Martial Artist during that ability. And remember, you don't have to pull them only if they're like really far away. It doesn't say if they're outside of range too.
Right.
You can push people through yourself. So if you're both standing on a point and they punch you, you just drag them to the other side of you.
Wait.
And now they're off the point, you're not.
Oh, that's right, because it says push the attacking card towards this character. But in this game, towards can mean past.
Pushing and throwing follow the same mechanics. The only difference is throwing causes collisions and breaks stuff. And so, and in this game, when you push or throw somebody, you ignore the model doing the throw or push. And so, like, Spider-Man can webline you through himself. He just flips you to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And so she can pull people through herself off the point. I think she's going to be a really, really annoying scenario piece.
I actually really like her as a 4-cost drop-in maybe to Web Warriors. I like her a lot. I think if she, not only is she, like you said, a really sticky scenario piece, Web Warriors doesn't like kind of standing on places because they can get eaten. But if she is re-rolling so many dice and re-rolling skulls, and then also messing with your opponent during their turn, I think it's going to be one more. If you have the points to play a 4-point cost character out of the faction, and you're playing Miles, I think she could be a really cool piece for that. I'm excited to play her for that reason right now because I'm looking at Web Warriors.
I don't think she's actually going to be that survivable. The physical deficit she has on defense is noticeable. Like, only having 2 dice, meaning that, like, what is that? That's like 70% of defends. Usually she'll max out at 2 defends. Mm-hmm. That's not a big number. And I know that that's a really, really consistent 2, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Like, she's gonna get hit by, like, how many times does, like, Wolverine roll in and do 7? Like, yeah, it's not likely, but she's just dead. Like, you can't survive that. Let alone, like, dodge rolls, right? Like, she gets to reroll the dodge rolls, but she doesn't defend on them.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't get the blanks. She wouldn't get to reroll with Great Responsibility. She wouldn't get to reroll skulls on those. So, like, she definitely has a vulnerability. But she is very survivable for a 6 health 4-point model. That is definitely true, but she's not like Thanos crazy. Like, she's not going to be like Magneto and just bounce attacks randomly.
No. She is interesting that she doesn't get pecked to death very easily. So rapid fire weapons are going to struggle against her, and also big mystic attacks, right? Like MODOK's, without doing his buying attack, like, he's going to have a hard time hurting her very hard.
Yes,
but. There are lots of really cool things that she could do, but she's 100% like matchup dependent. I think with her defense, she's not just 4s across the board. Come at me, bro. But I was talking about this earlier. I really, really like characters that I can say when I roll my dice, I'm not going to spike to 6, but I'm always going to get 2. I really like that character because I feel like I love consistency out of my models where the dice plays less of a role. So that's what I like about the Ancient One. Let's move to. I thought the Ancient One was cool. I was really excited about the Midnight Suns releases, and then Baron Mordo, right? So Baron Mordo,
he is Carl.
Baron Mordo. Yep, Carl Amadeus Mordo.
Carl Amadeus Mordo.
Yeah, well, got to remember he was actually a baron, right? Like he's from Western Europe, so Carl Amadeus is not that weird for a Germanic noble.
I guess.
So Mordo is a little weird, but there we go.
All right, I have not read this card at all, so this is gonna be all new to me.
Here we go. He has 6 health on the front side, 5 on the back. Otherwise, he's identical. He has move medium, size 2. He is 3 cost. He has 2 physical defense, 4 energy, and 4 mystic. He has 3 mystical attacks. The first is the Staff of the Living Tribunal. It is a range 3, 4 dice attack that gets him power, and has a wild push for size 2 or less.
Meh.
Then he has the Bolts of Bishru. It is a range 4 attack with 4 dice. He automatically gains 1 power for doing it, and it has Hex on a wild. And
Meh.
And then finally, the last one, the Reigns of Ragador, which is a 4 cost, 4 range, 7 die attack with Burning Rain. After this attack is resolved, the target character gains Incinerate and Poison.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Not crazy, but pretty cool.
Then we get into his powers. He feels like a support piece, and here's where they show up. Power number 1, 0 cost, action, Master of the Occult. This character gains 2 power.
Mm-hmm. Same as Vision, basically.
Yep. Second, Soul Barb, 2 cost as well. Choose an enemy character within range 3 of him, with 1 or more of the following conditions. Either Hex, Incinerate, Poison, or Slow. You can have more than 1. Choose one of these special conditions on that character. Each enemy character within 2 of the enemy gains the chosen special condition. So basically, it's a corpse explosion.
It spreads.
Yeah, it's a spread. It's a contagion, right? You take one of their negative abilities and you make it on everyone, which is cool.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool because also if he has 6 power, he can Runes of Ragador, and he'll automatically give them Incinerate and Poison, so you could pick one of those to then explode to everyone else. So he could at least...
it spreads all, not 1.
Each enemy character within 2 gains the chosen.
Choose 1 or more of the following. And then...
No. Choose an enemy character that has 1 or more. Then choose one of them.
So it just spreads the 1. Okay. Right. That would have been pretty strong.
Yeah. Spreads the 1. Then he has, I think you'll like the name of this one, Brandon, Ferocity of Sidorak. That's a nod to our friend the Juggernaut.
Yeah.
It's a 2 cost power. It reads kind of funny, but it makes sense afterwards. When another allied character within range 3 of this character targets an enemy character with an attack, this character may use a superpower. So basically, it's a reaction. If he has an ally that's within 3 of him that's about to do an attack, then the attacking character will add 2 dice to its attack roll. After the attack is resolved, the attacking character suffers 1 damage. This superpower may be used only once per turn. For those of you who don't know, Juggernaut is the character Juggernaut is powered by the Gem of Sidorak, the Jewel of Sidorak. Sidorak is a demon in the Netherworld who's all about bleeding, destruction, the entropy.
He's the god of destruction, basically.
And so he loves to see things blow up, and it doesn't matter who bleeds. It could be his followers or the person they're attacking. So in this case, it's both, right? You get 2 extra dice to do more damage, but then you also take damage because it's Sidorak doing it for you.
Yeah, for you 40k fans, he's basically Korn.
Yes. So this is a really cool power. It gives you 2 dice on an attack, and you suffer 1 damage. So
I like that this is in addition to potential tactics cards. Like if you do Blind Obsession and you stack the Ferocity on top of it, then and then also you might do like what's it called? Death's Decree. You're potentially adding 8 dice to an attack, and depending on who's attacking, that might be very impactful. That could be pretty cool.
Also, anybody who has regeneration, anybody who
exactly. Any of the X Factor guy or Weapon X guys is like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Deadpool will take 1 to roll like 9 dice on an AoE attack.
Right. So he can actually roll. You can get a lot of dice. All the regenerators are have big nukes. So it's really cool that you can basically make the cost of it, quote unquote, free, except for his 2 power. My favorite thing about the Ferocity of Sidorak is it just happens. He's just standing there, and it's whenever somebody else attacks. So he's not targeting an enemy within a certain range. He doesn't have to go first like the dog who has to actually target somebody and then the attacks get bonuses. Like, it's just, if he's standing there and he has 2 power and somebody around him is attacking, then you get it. If you want
Jeremy, what do you think about these?
Man, this is just one of those guys you just want to pull forward short and kill him. Like, he has to die. And I think he's probably pretty easy to go down, but
that's funny that you mentioned that. It's funny that you mentioned that, because his last power, the Vaulting Boots of Valtor, which is on his model, which is super cool, the ones in the movie, for 2 power, after this character is pushed, he may use it. After the effect is resolved, he gets to advance short.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as he has 2 power, if you push him to try to kill him, he'll just go back.
Well, only on a push, though. Like, he still gets thrown and placed.
And advanced.
And advanced, yeah. It only stops one of the 4 controls. But yeah, it is nice. Let's see, he's 5 health in the back, 6 on the front. 11 hit points. He's definitely getting played. This guy seems very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will say, though, his attacks are not actually that scary. He's kind of just a support model until you get a bunch of power, which obviously he can get power quickly, but
I think
so I think this is very interesting.
I really like this guy. He seems, rather than he is one of our very first debuff supports, like this very clearly debuff support, right? He's the only buff he gets to his Ferocity of Sidorak is kind of a buff because you're getting offensive, but again, you're just doing more damage. He's all about offensive support rather than defensive support. Yeah. We have a lot of defensive support in this game. He's the very first, I think, like super offensive support, because even his powers, all of them are just like push, so you can move people to get more attacks, or hex, or incinerate and poison. All those are just increasing the likelihood. I actually like that he has 3 attacks. I like that they're all at ranged. Almost every other support model in this game, you have to be within range 2 and you do 5 dice and that's it. Like, he's
a wizard. He throws shit at people.
Right, but he's also a support model. I love it.
I made this fiery ball of death. Catch.
I know you guys are getting...
It'll be interesting to see what happens. He's going to get played.
I know you guys are probably going to get a little mad at me, but the first thing I thought was, 2 physical defense, but he does have a lot of 2-cost powers. Perhaps Captain America has a new buddy, perhaps. I don't know if he does anything for Cap. But
I don't think he spends 7 points on support with Cap.
No.
Now, I do think that this is true, though. We've seen a lot of these Midnight Suns guys lately, and we're pretty sure that Doc 2 is going to be a second leader for them, right?
Well, we're
everybody kind of...
Perhaps.
I mean, but that's kind of the expectation, right? Like, it's not guaranteed. We're not... like truly expecting, but like we're kind of leaning that direction, right?
Well, it makes sense if they use what the canon of the comics. It makes sense.
How is Doctor Strange going to be in a faction and not, or in an affiliation and not be the leader, right? Like that just seems odd.
Right. He's
too important for this Blackula Hunter guy to want to go out and be in charge. Like it's got to be Doctor Strange. He looks too cool to not be a leader.
I do not understand how they made the Dhampir the leader. I don't understand, because he in no canon I've ever heard of has he ever led anybody anywhere. He's always a solo artist.
Well, it might be for the new movie coming out. Who knows?
Maybe.
It's got to tie in, right? Because we've got the Blade TV shows coming, and then we've got the Multiverse of Madness movie coming out. And so I assume a lot of this stuff's being pulled from there. Because we got the MCU Ancient One, we got the MCU Mordo, we got the MCU Strange. All of this is basically pulled right out of the movies, and so I can only imagine these are mostly references to the new movie stuff, because you gotta remember the movies got delayed by a year and a half, but the models had to keep coming out. The game would die if they didn't keep producing their stuff. So I think the game is a year ahead of the movies right now. So I think these are things we probably wouldn't actually be seeing until the movie would have been out already. But the reason I brought all this up is because I think that a lot of these characters are very interesting and technical, and definitely have a designed role on the field. And so I think a lot of them seem pretty well tuned, but they're all missing one thing, I think, which is designed to be that way. So if the second leadership for these guys comes out and it's really good for all of them, that might kind of tip them into like the really strong category. And so that's what I'm excited to see. If Strange is also a leader, I want to know what his leadership is. Because on kits like these, like some stuff is real, like some power discounting. Like what if he had like Cap's leadership? Like I know that's not likely they would just reprint another leadership, but like what if he had something similar to that? Some kind of like power discounting or something. That could be really strong.
Oh, Baron Mordo could definitely be an Avenger, I think, at this point. Anybody could.
He could, but what if he didn't have to be because Strange was?
Right.
Anyway.
Weird.
Or what if he just had like Black Bolt's leadership, like where you just hand power around, and now Mordo's fueling your whole team? Like also, that could be crazy.
Also, I don't know. Mordo in the MCU is very much kind of an anti-hero, right? He was kind of he was very much a diehard believer in like the true faith, and then the Ancient One, rocked his trust, and so now he's kind of warped. But in the comics, he's just an asshole. Like he's just a straight evil asshole.
He's just an evil wizard,
right?
Yeah.
So Mordo in this game, he may not even be a Midnight Sun in this game. He might just be another Cabal member.
I think
one more
be
Cabal
like
member for the Pyre.
Yeah, I think it'll be like Hela, where they just put it in. They'll just be a niche enough faction that all of them are going to be in. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like Hela's an Asgardian. Like she doesn't fight for Asgard. Like she's a villain.
Yeah. Kind of. She's more like a force of nature. I could actually see that.
Yeah, but at no point was she ever allied with Asgard, really, right? Like way, way back in the ancient times before Thor. Like, are we counting that?
And when you read the like the Norse stuff, she's definitely not a good guy, right?
Yeah. And so, like, Loki and her, and this was, like, the starter Loki, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be, like, the evil Loki. He's in Cabal. Like, He's the Avengers 1 Loki, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
And so, he's in Asgard. Like, I think anytime you have, like, a niche faction, they're just going to keep everybody in it, and it doesn't matter. It's basically going to be all the wizard people are in this faction.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if, like, Wong and other Doctor Strange make it in. Also.
Hell, to be fair, if Baron Mordo does make it to Cabal, he'd actually be pretty damn good in a Red Skull Cabal, I think. I think he would... He's got
maybe.
He's got
he fits the theme.
Right. And he's also got the range 4 attack to gain 2 power twice and then start doing his thing. Like he get a lot more power than you think really quick.
Only if he damages with his 4 dice attack, which is, not unlikely,
true.
But it's not guaranteed.
That's true.
And again, he doesn't need the power. Like, does he need to make 2 4 dice attacks? Like, just gain the 4 power if that's what you want.
That's you can only do that once per turn. You can only gain once.
Oh, is it limited? Oh, okay.
Right.
I think Synthezoid is not limited on Vision. Let me check, because I said they were the same earlier. Synthezoid is not limited, so no. Synthesis. So yeah, you can. This is not as good as Synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
Robots superior to magic. Facts.
But he can spend 1 action to gain 2, and then do the bolts anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think these guys are gonna be fun. I like very intricate, complicated kits like this, where there's lots of options, but you have to line everything up.
I also love Baron.
They're all very complicated for sure. Altogether, they're going to be a mess.
I actually love Baron's model too. He's jumping on the with the boots.
I thought you were like, I love Barons, like in general.
I love.
I love how
it's like there are 2 Barons in this game.
There are 2. I do like both.
There's 1 king and 2 princes, right?
Yeah.
And
well, depends on what fluff. Thor's kind of a king too.
Yeah, he becomes a king, but the Thor we got is Prince of Asgard.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're done with this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, did we get Mordo's cards?
That's what
or is this just his character card?
Oh, we did not have his. Yeah, we only have his character cards. We don't have.
Okay.
As far as we know, we don't have any Taxus cards from anybody yet.
Just the way you wrote it in the document made me think we had cards. Okay. Cool. Well, that was a fun news. Did you guys enjoy the news?
I liked it a lot. I'm excited.
Lots of news.
Jeremy, are you excited?
Very excited.
You're like 3 Valium and a gin and tonic excited.
Yes.
He's very excited for Krull.
I don't like the fucking wizards, man. I like Blade.
I like wizards. I'm also excited. Unfortunately, this is going to be a flavor of the month no-go for me, but I'm actually kind of excited to play some Spider Foes, and I know that's not going to happen because everyone's going to be playing Spider Foes for like a month.
Do you think this is actually
around here? Yes.
Oh,
I don't think in a normal setting that would be true, but between you, Parker, and like other people, yeah, I think it's gonna, or not you, Parker, you and Richard, and some other people, it's gonna be Spider City for a while. So I'll probably just keep playing Brotherhood in the meantime.
Well, if I ever get my Amazing Spider-Man, that's all that will be my.
Oh, did I tell you? We're gonna get all the normal ones, but yours was delayed again.
No, just mine.
Just yours.
I knew.
All right, so what are you guys currently playing? Jeremy isn't playing stuff because he doesn't care. Parker is wanting to play Web Warriors, and I am playing.
I play games. I played Little Cap. I played Captain Sam.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. We played that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I played Magneto because like one is one to do,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't win.
I beat Magneto with Captain Sam.
You did beat Magneto.
I beat your list with a ridiculous Wolverine turn. Is what I beat it with.
It was a really good Wolverine turn. I am a little sour towards the end there because I almost pulled it out.
Mm-hmm.
I had Red Skull use the cube to place himself, and then threw the Kamehameha at Cap or Sam, Falcon in this game. Yeah, and he had Dark Rain up. I threw a Unleash the Cube at Sam with Dark Rain up. 0 hits.
Mm-hmm. That was really nice.
I was very sad. And then I go on to one-shot 2 characters over the next turn.
Yep.
I was like, all right, whatever, this game's over. Like, so he does a bunch of damage to Red Skull. My turn. I one-shot Luke Cage with the cube by throwing him into, who's that other jerk that was over there? War Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Threw him into War Machine, killed Luke. Next turn, killed War Machine, and then Sam had to finish me off.
No, War Machine, you didn't get
War Machine was just dazed. Yeah, he wasn't dead. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like, he was just running the table and just didn't have enough gas in the tank. I was very sad. I thought I might pull it out.
I learned something about Captain Sam, and it was really interesting. At face value, you look at the team ability, and it says, play smaller Avengers, get a lot of use out of that, which works, by the way. But there's another thing about like him and the list is it's a very, very, very mobile list. The fact that he can do all this cool place stuff, and he places himself, like he goes from downtown. Like where he starts the turn is not where he will end up, nor where he can throw.
Parker is surprised that the speed longer with charge does not end where he starts.
Well, the reason why is I'm so used to playing Avengers.
News at 11.
I'm so used to playing Avengers where you just move up and stand there, and you just get in this quagmire in the middle. That's kind of how you play. And so
you see, Parker, when 100% of your games aren't with the same leader, new stuff happens.
I know.
That's what I would suggest.
News flash.
New stuff.
News flash. I really liked Lil Sam. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it looked like a good list.
So I've been playing Defenders recently, and adding in Luke Cage and whatever the other guy. Let me just call him the other guy because of
Danny.
How disappointed I am.
Danny.
Stupid.
He's about as productive as you would think some homeless guy with no shoes named Danny would be.
Actually, that's 100% true. That is accurate. But I do like
Danny. You didn't do anything.
Oh my god!
Shit.
Ugh.
Unfortunately, they decided to make the whiny bitch from the Netflix show Iron Fist instead of the actual useful Iron Fist.
Man, that guy has died like a bitch so many times now for me. Just in so many ways, like a variety of ways. I think I'm done with him.
Is he just like are people just targeting him really hard because they're terrified of
No, you don't have to target him hard. You don't even target him hard.
He's like Shuri without all the good rules, basically. Because Shuri also has a ridiculous spender attack that just like one-shots somebody, but she has a good kit without that. Like, it's just like they only wanted him to do one thing is what it feels like.
An Iron Fist spender is ridiculously expensive. So trying to get that off, you don't even do that. All you do is try and get flying kicks in and kind of place yourself around the table and like Duke to the left, jive to the right, move around, and you just get clocked in the face every time. Oh,
I mean, I think Jeremy has some small sample size bias.
Whatever.
I mean,
I played like 100 games or 2.
Matt says that's not true, but I was like, he has the exact same defensive stats as 80% of the models in the game. He just gets one shot. It's like, I don't think that's a problem with his stats necessarily. Maybe it's the way you're playing him, where you're like, I kicked you, so let me place right in the middle of your army, and you're like, uh-oh. But when it comes to his, have you ever used the Iron Fist?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No way. Not even close.
You know he gains more than 1 power a turn, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm just making sure you remembered, because I could
see
you sitting there like, God, he only gets 1! This is so stupid!
No.
He's just standing alone on a point, like, why do I only have 2 power? And then someone comes over and kills him.
I was actually excited.
Like,
I was like,
this character is terrible.
I think he's going to be alright. And every time I'm like, he's going to be alright. We're going to be fine. Never fine. He never gets it off. He always drops right before I get to use him.
Well, on the plus side, his box partner, Iron Fist, or also, what's his name? Lucas Cage?
Yeah.
No, what's his actual... It's not Luke Cage, and it threw me really hard when I first read his card. Luke, because it's like a pseudonym he uses. It's not his real name. Is it? Luke Cage?
Yeah, pretty sure Luke Cage is his name.
It just says Luke Cage on the card.
Yeah, he used to go by Power Man.
I don't think it's AKA
Yeah, Luke Cage is his name.
Am I crazy? I was pretty sure my card doesn't say Luke Cage. Maybe I'm thinking of a different character. Anyway. Yeah, it says Luke Cage in the picture online. But anyway, yeah, I've been very impressed with Luke Cage. He plays much better on the table than he does on the card. Like, the card seems decent, but I've been very impressed with him on the table.
Lucagor Cageagon?
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I really the Heroes for Hire card with him it's super strong. You just get up in it. It's so good.
Heroes for Hire is very legit. Has anyone tried the all reroll card strategy yet? I know we talked about just kind of wanting that. Like, we just want Dice Mods cards. We don't want other stuff. And now they've actually given us that. The last 2 boxes have had reroll your dice cards in them. But I don't think anybody's given them a try yet.
No, sir. I have not.
I don't like the defensive one because I feel like the dice pools are going to be so shallow, it's not going to make a big difference.
Well, it's not just reroll your defense dice.
Yeah, or reroll your opponent's 3 dice or whatever. I don't...
But if they... You obviously use it on the spikes, right? Because there's usually once a game where your opponent's like, I block 5. And you're like, please don't. And so you like reroll those. And like, what are the odds they're going to hit that big spike again?
Never tell me the odds.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Is there anything you guys are working on for hobby projects?
Just assembling. I keep assembling.
What'd you build?
I built Omega Red, and I built the Lizard because his model is so cool. I had to build Lizard and Craven. Craven went it together in seconds. Lizard was a little tricky though because everything went perfectly fine until I had to put the Lizard on the water like it's coming out of the sewer, and all of the 3D and 2D renders of that like fit are misleading. I had to stare at it for a while, but we figured it out.
Yeah.
And then I also put together sort of Bob minus his holster because I lost it when I was assembling and it's gone. And so Bob may not get a holster. He might just have green stuff.
Have a big hole in his leg.
Yeah. If I just have a green stuff in the hole in his leg is. But that's what I've got. I got those 4 done this week.
I mostly finished assembling the apartment building and I'm very happy. It's a fun thing to put together.
My kids made me finish the taco truck.
Nice. I have 3 taco trucks now.
You have 3?
Yeah.
People just keep giving them to you?
I'm starting a Tex-Mex empire.
Oh my god.
He has a fleet.
Alrighty. Yeah. I actually saw a taco truck on my way home yesterday. It was nuts. I've never seen a taco truck in my area before. I've never seen a food truck in my area before. It was called the One and Only. It was pretty cool.
Aw, that's clever.
All right. So I guess we're going to move into our I'm using air quotes. I want everyone to know that I'm just using air quotes, so it's 100% not real quotes.
Cool.
Main topic, end real quotes. All right, Parker, why don't you take us into it?
Why the derision? I think this is a perfectly reasonable... Okay.
All right, here, I'll set you up. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Introduce your stupid topic. All right. Okay. No, but for real this time. All right. Our topic for today is, what is your faction identity? So we want to talk about, specifically Parker, wants to talk about the factions that are not as clear in their objective and the way they go about trying to win the game. So Parker, why don't you tell us what you're talking about?
Okay, so there are some factions that clearly seem to say they have a certain win condition, like they're rerolling attack dice, right? Or they are getting a buff to scenario by messing with your opponent's scenario pieces or improving yourself, or maybe they get extra defense. So we have all these different factions with these clear identities that they're going for scenario, they're going for attack, or maybe it's not so much like the win condition, but they're benefiting certain kinds of models. So a day unlike any other for the Avengers, you like to have models that have premium powers that all cost 2 or more, and you're getting a constant discount with those, especially ones that happen on your opponent's turn, because then you're getting to pop those constantly and get lots of value from them. From Inhumans, you might like a character that likes to have one character that has a lot of power. You can pool it up. Same thing for Defenders, where you have a couple characters that like a lot of power, so as you're taking damage, you have deep health pools, and you're making sure all your characters are constantly popping those awesome big attacks or powers. So you've got all this clear faction stuff to take advantage of their faction, either with their leadership abilities or their kind of their composition. But there are a couple factions that just don't seem to have that at all, and so when I am
Inhumans,
what's that?
Inhumans.
Yeah, Inhumans. Inhumans have okay. They're sort of, because maybe you might do something turn 1 or 2 by using their faction power, but after turn 1 or 2, I don't know if they have one.
But that's like a gimmick. That's not that's a one-time thing, really. Like the sharing the power.
Right.
That's not an objective. Right. Cabal is obviously kill them. Right. Black Order is kill them.
Yeah.
Avengers is survive and be efficient.
So
Web Warriors is obviously board control. So is Wakanda.
Right.
They all have an obviously set in stone. This is how you achieve victory with this list.
Right.
And Inhumans don't. We have models. They're kind of good, I guess.
Yes. Same thing. So Spider Foes. A lot of the Spider Foes are coming out at some point. When Mysterio and Carnage drop, but we have a lot more Spider Foes now. They can be playable as a faction, and what is their identity? How do you? I was going to make a list with them, and Brandon and I were joking. I go, okay, I put all the Spider Foes in my roster, and now what? So, what do you do?
I mean, they basically don't have a leader, right? Green Goblin's not really a leader; he's a psychopath.
Well, that's not. That
I will ram my flying device into your face.
Well, the Inhumans barely have a leader. He can't even speak. He can't even tell anybody what to do.
He points and thinks about grunting, and then his friends die.
Yeah.
No.
There is. It's not. I don't know. And I guess this is my point. Is it a lack of synergy? Is it a lack of theme? And if there is lack of synergy, or lack of theme, does that even matter? Should you just play the Green Goblin because you want to play the Green Goblin and screw Spider Foes?
Well, I mean, that is the answer. Yeah, you should play what you want to play. But if you want to play affiliation specific lists, yeah, I think it's a good roadmap. I don't know that you need to specifically follow what they're doing. And the more stuff that comes out, they've even shown us that their goal is to break up the norms for affiliations as well.
Right.
We have, Avengers wore the big beefy brick list, right? It's I've got Thor and Ghost Rider, and I've got, Captain America here. I'm going to make a big pile of dudes, and they're going to be impossible to kill. I'm going to slowly move up the board. New guys screw it, don't care if people die, take as many people as you can and run at them as fast as you can. You're well, that seems different than the previous, and then, the new web warriors, like screw objectives, just go punch them to death. Like, that's our new plan. What if we can punch them more times than they punch us? Like, I guess that could work. And you're like, so they show that they're really just trying to give you more options, I think, as things get released, which is good.
But even that
is frustrating.
You just described two clear identities for affiliations. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, in the design space of this game, they have found a way to create design spaces within each affiliation, like with the leadership powers. But there seems to be some affiliations that, regardless of their leadership powers or how many characters they add in, it doesn't seem to matter. Like, for example, when the Inhumans were just like 4 members. You're like, oh, what are these guys supposed to do? I don't know. And then they added, Quicksilver and Beast. So now it's really obvious. Well, no, it's not. What are they? I don't know. What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
It doesn't help me at all.
I told you, explain, like, tell this guy what Inhumans do in 3 words. Like, be Inhumans.
Yeah.
I only needed 2.
Bad
like,
alias names.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, that hurts me as somebody who is, I have not played as many games, and so when I'm building lists, I'm looking for something to create cohesion, right? I'm looking for synergy. I'm looking for identity, and so far, there are some factions that just seem to scream its identity, and that doesn't even like make me choose certain things. I actually do have the ability to get funny. We were talking the other day about how criminals, we're talking about criminal lists, and there are characters that could be great criminals that aren't in the criminal affiliation, but because of the way that affiliation works, there's some awesome characters in there that are totally off the beaten path. Have you considered this? And so it wasn't even like restricting in terms of design space. It was actually, it was liberating, because it allowed me to look and target these things that I wanted in the game as I learned more about the characters. And I don't know how I could ever start to do that with for Spider Foes or Inhumans, to a lesser extent X-Force, or maybe even
X-Men.
X-Men. Oh my God, Cyclops X-Men. Like, what's that?
Well, I mean, Cyclops is obviously not good. I think we all agree on that. But like, what do they do outside of that?
Yeah.
Like, what is X-Men's theme? Like, what do they do?
Right.
I don't know that they do anything.
They're
supposed.
Yeah.
They clearly, to me, are supposed to be like a synergy faction, because they've got like their main leader, Cyclops, has an ability called Team Leader, where he moves people around, and he's supposed to be like sharing power. And then the other leader, like, if you're close to a friend, you get to place near them. Like, they seemed like they were going for some kind of like close knit formation strategy thing, and I just do not think it's come over well, or we're missing a piece. I think it's probably more likely we're just missing a piece. Like, maybe Colossus, when he comes out, will change something, or maybe like Rogue, Gambit, Nightcrawler, or somebody else will come out that'll like make it click, and we'll be like, oh, now this is what we were missing. Because like there's been stuff like that before.
I think the Storm has only like one identity, which is models that activate other models, because then you can make use of the flipping over. So like Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight are fantastic, or if you're like crunch for points or you want to do it, I guess Sin and Crossbones could do the same thing. Or if you want to pay for the tactics card that lets you activate somebody immediately afterwards, like there are ways to do it. But
well, I don't know that you have to do that, because you could just activate somebody, move up near a friend, and then place and still do other stuff, or you could use it to get yourself out.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of ways you could use it, but yeah, I see what you're saying, where it's extra impactful with stuff.
Right, but I'm saying at least the Storm's one at least has like there is a way to coordinate the team, the affiliation leadership power with something in the game that makes use of it to get extra value. In the same way that Captain America gains extra value from anybody who has a 2-cost power that happens on every turn, like defensive powers. So, what it does to me as a newer player, even one who knows a lot of the game by heart on paper, just haven't got to play it a lot, is as I'm trying to make a list, there are some affiliations that I'm completely unexcited to start, and that's the part that makes me the most sad. Is I'm totally unexcited to start some things because I don't see where to go.
To get to the point of this, what affiliations do we think have this issue where they have either a very weak or a lacking entirely in some kind of I don't know, like idiom, I guess? Like what is their focus? What is the essence of these factions? Like what falls within their realm of manipulation? Like obviously we have factions that have multiples. We have factions that have one, and then we have some factions that just seem to not really have one. Like maybe you could even say like Midnight Suns are kind of in that realm, but we obviously haven't seen all their characters yet. They do a lot of like weird manipulation abilities, but I don't know if anything they do would be considered like a theme other than they have wizards. Like specifically, I know you've brought up multiple times Spider Foes and Inhumans. And I think Spider Foes were designed to be a little eclectic, like separated and fractured, because they're not really like a team. They're just a collection of people. Like, I don't know that at any point the Spider Foes were like ever really truly organized or worked together, other than like the Sinister Six occasionally, which mostly was just a revolving door of Rogues Gallery, right?
Yeah, well, it's just like it was one person saying we should all point ourselves at Spider-Man at the same time. Like, yeah, it's not a coordinated teamwork kind of thing. It's just let's all run at him together. It'll be harder for him to stop us.
I feel like they're the joke's on us when it comes to Spider Foes, because you ask what they do. They're after Peter Parker. Yeah, but what about winning the game? Well, they're after Peter Parker.
Their faction identities, we have Nemesis, you don't. Like, that's literally their faction identity. It's like, we want to kill one person, not all of us the same guy, but we all want to kill one person. You're like, okay.
They're all after some revenge. It's just revenge.
Dude, I am going to be so excited when, like, the actual Sinister Six come out, which I think is going to happen in the next Spider-Man movie. I think they're going to introduce, like, the Sinister Six as a whole. I really hope that's going to happen. And because I want to get like Rhino and like Scorpion and like all like the other like fill out that range, because right now like Green Goblin's great, but like I want Shocker, like Mysterio's already there, like I want
Vulture.
The Sinister Six. Vulture would be pretty cool. Like I played the Spider-Man PlayStation game at a very informative age, and so like I want the super cartoony classic Spider-Man villains. I really want that.
I want Shocker to be a 2-point character. Just saying. Moving forward.
Shocker, and he's like Crossbones. He's just a complete chump. Yeah. He sits there and he zaps people, and they're like, "What are you doing, Quilt Man?" He's like, "I'm not Quilt Man. Shut up!" Like, it's like, don't dress in a kilt if you don't want to be called Quilt Man.
I'll ask. Jeremy, you were saying that Defenders kind of feel like that sometimes because you've been playing them recently. You don't really know what, like, their identity is not so much. It's just play 3 Defenders. Is that the way they feel?
It's because they're so expensive, and most of the time you don't need their affiliation at all, other than portals. They have one card that's a tactics card that makes their entire affiliation. Is that cool? I don't know. And that's a really one-off kind of offshoot. And what that's saying is that for Spider Foes, it could come in the box set with Rhino and Scorpion, the one tactics card that defines the affiliation. It could happen.
Well, I think part of the problem for Spider Foes also is because things have come out so fragmented for them. Like, they haven't had a big release. Like, the biggest release they've had just got delayed again, so we only got one of the 2 box sets. Like, they've never had multiple things come out at the same time. And so it's like, what are you supposed to do? Like, they've never gotten more than, like, 2 models at a time. And then they get random sprinklings of tactics cards along the way. It's like, well, we've never, like, gotten to see them all at once. And I just rewatched the interview with Will Schick and Will Pagani, where they basically spoiled a lot of the Amazing Spider-Man, a couple other things, but they talked about Mysterio and Carnage a lot. They were actually designed with the core set. They were supposed to be in the core set originally, and they changed it up because I guess the Spider stuff got pushed back. But I thought it was really interesting because the way they used those models to design other models, and then they came back around after they finished the other models and retouched them off their initial designs. And it was kind of interesting. But yeah, I think they're kind of intended to be really fractured. As far as Defenders, I think Defenders are the support faction. I think they have the most support you can basically put in one list. Kind of like Wakanda does. It's a little bit of synergy, but it's all about making yourself better. Really, is like they give like portals to move through. They bodyguard for each other. They get buffs when people attack their friends or stuff like that. Like they have a lot of things like that. I feel so. It feels like a faction of support models.
As I say, Doctor Strange has like 3 support abilities, and then also Wong comes with him, and he's also just a support.
Right.
But those can come. The point is, though, that those models can go anywhere and do that with anyone. Sure. I think the real question comes in. So put Spider-Foes aside, because that's just a collection of shit that isn't released yet and finished. I think you need to go back to Inhumans. What the hell is going on?
I feel like that was the biggest miss I've ever seen. Like, the only thing that anyone's ever going to take out of that stupid faction, in my opinion, is the fucking dog, which is way overtuned. I hate Inhumans. I've always hated Inhumans. I think they're stupid. From like an aesthetic point. It has nothing to do with Atomic Mass Games. I think the Inhumans from a design point are dumb. Like, it's so... Like, we're the not mutant mutants. We're just mutants that aren't mutants. And no, we don't like anybody, and we stick to ourselves. And we don't help people. And you're like, why are you here?
We've talked about their design space before.
I know.
But
it's really dumb.
Black Bolt is such fucking garbage. Like, I'm going to stand here, and you're never going to kill me. Okay, what then? You're never going to kill me. Okay, who gives a shit?
I don't think that Black Bolt is complete dog shit, like, in the game. I just don't know that he's worth 5 points in Inhumans. Like, of all lists you want to put him in, like, he's supposed to be like a MODOK, like, or a Magneto. He's supposed to be like this big ace in the hole. But the people in his affiliation do not support him well in any way. Mm-hmm. Like, Lockjaw maybe, because Lockjaw supports everybody. But again, like... Just like you're talking about Wong and Strange in another list, like, just take the dog out and put him somewhere that they have good stuff. Like, just put him with MODOK and it's better, turns out. Like because there's nothing tying them together. There's no synergy. There's no overlapping, like, theme.
Right.
It's just like, here's 4 models with a lot of rules. None of them interact with each other. And you're like, oh. It's like, okay.
But what's funny is that, it's funny you mentioned that, because I think Asgardians is that exact description, only done correctly. Because Asgardians is a bunch of models with several rules, but there are
overlapping themes though.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of debuff and throwing and stuff that complements each other.
Right.
There's a lot of high health pools. There's a lot of extra power. Like, they have similar abilities, but they also synergize by being together.
Do they? I don't think so.
Yeah, like in a board control faction, the synergy is I have more board control.
Right. So in this faction,
I can move more people.
Right. So in this faction, you have more throws and more power than your opponent without doing damage, and without damage being a factor. So, like, but that's what I'm saying is that Inhumans, the reroll thing, I think, is supposed to be something that ties them together, but for some reason it doesn't work in the same way that getting an extra power does in Asgard. Because in Asgard, getting extra power lets you create a whole different, like, army purpose. But in Humans, rerolling an attack or defense dice lets you be one up or down. Be one up or down every time. That's not going to enable you to be a great attrition faction. It's not going to enable you to throw people more often or use awesome cards more often, like Asgardians can.
But also, just look at their, like, roles on the battlefield. Like, Black Bolt is a blaster. He sits back and he shoots people. That's all he does. Then you move on to Medusa. Medusa is a mobile brawler. She wants to get in there and fight people. Crystal is a mobile ranged person, like, runs around the table like a skirmisher, blasting people and debuffing them. And then, like, you have an obvious support model in Lockjaw. Like, they don't do anything similar. As we're like, Asgard, everyone is like a medium range fighter, except for Thor and Valkyrie, which are, like, still medium range for the most part. Like they want to get in there. The whole faction wants to get to within range 3.
They're all like extended threat brawlers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's just like they're so fractured and different. They don't do anything similar. And they don't have a win condition. Like, there's no win condition built in other than, like, I guess I'll use my one big model to kill you. But that's just a weird strategy. Like, if you're going to take one big model, you would take a ton of support models. They don't have a ton of support models.
If you want one big model and a bunch of support that does well, play A-Force or Cabal or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. A-Force, Cabal, Blackwater. Like, there's a lot of factions you can do that kind of stuff in.
Right.
not Inhumans.
Right. So Inhumans, if Spider-Foes is supposed to not have an identity because it's a bunch of psychopaths, pointed in the same direction, then I guess that's an identity. I don't like it because it doesn't help me play the game.
They're like the mercenary team, right? Like I know Criminals is kind of that, but they have an identity.
The Criminals have a fantastic identity. It's really clear.
Right, but I think Spider-Foes is supposed to be like the mercenary faction, really.
But none. Okay, none of them don't have any mercenaries.
Not mercenaries in they like lend lease out, but like mercenary is like Motley Crue type, like odd collection of misfits, kind of like mercenary group.
Okay, is
what I mean. Like they're supposed to feel like a fucking like stapled together pile of shit that gets the job done.
Right, but that's
I don't know what the job is.
Yeah,
Peter Parker.
There's a reason we talked about.
But yeah, that's what he's like. Jeremy said to kill Peter Parker.
Spider-Man. Like I wait for Jameson.
Yeah. They have
Jameson
so
needs to be in the game.
They have so many rules and tactics cards that specifically fuck Spider-Man. I love it.
Oh my god. Okay, hold on. Great idea. What if Jameson was in the game? He's a 2-point model, and for 1 power, he nominates an ally within range 3, and he gains Nemesis Spider-Man. That's all he does.
Oh my god.
It's
called bad press.
Yeah. Yeah, bad press.
Man or Menace. Spider-Man, Man or Menace.
Yeah.
I think that is weird that they made a whole faction just to hate on 2 models in the game. That's really odd, but they did, I guess.
Yeah, it just seems really odd. But when the starter set came out, it was supposed to be Doc Ock, Spider-Man, and Carnage, Mysterio. Like it's supposed to be a lot of bad guys. Then if you look at it, Venom came out right after Wave 1 because it's basically Wakandan's Venom immediately dropped. And so you were going to have Venom, Carnage, Doc Ock, Mysterio, Spider-Man. The next kid out after as Guardians was going to be Miles and Gwen. So we're up to 7 immediately. The whole first wave uses the Spider-Man symbol as the timeline symbol that they're using for stage 1, or what is it called? It's like the rotating format. I can't remember what it's called. Phase 1. It's like the phase 1 of the game. And so it's all the Spider-Man logo, but we didn't get the Spider-Man stuff immediately. It all got pushed back. And I think that was partially because of the movies and partially because of production rules and stuff. But I think we were supposed to get a lot more Spider stuff a lot faster. So Web Warriors and Spider-Foes was supposed to be much more iconic to the initial, intro to the game. I think the pandemic kind of messed a lot of it up.
Fine. Still.
Right.
They built a faction to hate on 2 models in the game. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Three. It's 3 Spider-Man.
Does it also work on? Do those cards also work on him?
Yeah, Miles is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Now, what is it? Nemesis. I might say Peter Parker. Let me check. It is Green Goblin, and who's the other? Oh, other Nemesis isn't for Peter. Let me get my 8-bit downloading speed in real quick. Hold on. Peter Parker arch nemesis. So any Peter Parker doesn't even have to be a Spider-Man.
Yeah. So also all their trap cards are also like bad for Spider people too. Like it's they're the anti-scenario list kind of. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny that you say that because their faction name is Spider-Foes. So it literally says in the name, we don't want Spider people to win. But that's really weird, right? Because the criminals aren't like, we want to make money. I guess they do. I guess that is kind of the faction because they just stand on scenarios and they don't want to fight you. So I guess the identities are kind of summed up to some degree. The Inhumans are just not human. That's all they are. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
they're just not human.
They're just not human.
No, I definitely agree that these 2 factions have poor identities, and I think, well, at least from an aesthetic point, Spider-Foes obviously have a strong identity. I just don't think it translates to the game.
And that's that's my problem. Is
Spider-Foes?
That's my problem. I want the rules in the game to supplement, some sort of strategy that I can use.
And hold on. again, when I was saying earlier, I think part of it is that all these models have come out over such a long period of time, we haven't really looked at them as a cohesive group. And so, looking at the Spider-Foes, I just pulled up the list. Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Kingpin, Venom, Carnage, Mysterio, Lizard, Kraven. These models all actually have a very, like, unifying theme and concept. Is that they're all, like, get in close and personal and fight you to death models. Like, none of them are, like, support. None of them are control-y, really, except for Mysterio. They're all, like, close-range fighters. And so maybe that's their identity, is they're just a bunch of brawlers, and they just want to get in there and fight you. Which is the opposite of what Web Warriors generally want to do. They're a stick-and-move kind of faction. Because you got Kraven and Carnage are both, like, just murder monsters. So is Green Goblin to some extent. They just want to get in there and fucking kill you. And then you have Kingpin and Venom and Doc Ock are all kind of like ponderous bruisers. And then your only, like, ranged person really is Mysterio. I don't even really remember that much about Mysterio because I haven't played him.
He's mostly
range 3, range 2. He's close range. He's a close range evasive model. And so him and Green Goblin are kind of more similar than the rest. But for the most part, they're just like, I'm just going to kill you. They're definitely a fighting faction, obviously, right?
I think it's interesting. The one thing that they do have is they do have the 2 trap cards, right? They have 2 objective trap cards. And so the one thing I did see them doing is kind of saying fuck it to the objective game, like spending most of the time saying fuck it to the objective game. But unlike other attrition factions like Cabal, like Red Skull Cabal and Captain America, because basically Red Skull and Cabal, Captain America are generally all in on the attrition game. They have to kill way more than their opponent. They have to stay alive and kill their opponent and have a huge model lead by about turn 4 so that they can turn around the scenario game, because they're punting the scenario game for the first 3 turns, right? Maybe not completely, but they're usually giving it away. These guys are actually don't have to work that hard for the objective game because they have 2 trap cards that'll make it more difficult for your opponent to get either early objectives or if they've collected a bunch of objectives on round 2 or 3, then all of a sudden they just lose them all, right? Just boom, you're gone.
They definitely punish people who try and outrace you on scenario.
Right. So if they are an attrition beat 'em up faction and they have these 2 tactics cards that slow down or inhibit scenario play, that's cool and all. Like there's that. I guess that's an identity. I guess.
Well, what I'm trying to point out here, though, what if they're like the reactionary faction then? Because Kraven has, like, traps written all over him, right? With his Cage the Beast thing he does. Wait, doesn't he have that? Corner the Beast, active. Okay. So it's an active, but it's still, like, it triggers when they do stuff.
Right.
And then you got Green Goblin with his Trick or Treat, where if you move close to him, he blows up terrain. And then you've got Tricks and Traps on Mysterious. They have 3 people that respond to you moving.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, they have a tactics card that responds to you moving. And then they have another tactics card that just says, go fuck yourself if you have extractions.
Mm-hmm.
And then Venom has a reactionary attack you. He has a reactionary bodyguard card. And then, what is Carnage? Carnage does reactionary stuff, right? He has Paint the Town. Oh, it's reacting to him doing stuff. That's not really reaction. I thought Lizard, like, reacted. No, he just kicks you with his tail.
So, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, but again, aside from probably playing Green Goblin and Doc Ock to make sure the well-laid plans goes off, do you just, probably Venom because he's great and Mysterio because he's strong control?
Carnage. No, I actually think there's a lot of good characters in there. We just were waiting for them to get fucking released.
I hear you, but what I keep saying is, again, like, am I playing? I guess I'm just putting them all down on the board and see if they have it is good at reacting.
They're the Traps faction. Like they have punishment abilities.
Okay, so you heard it here first. We started this whole thing going Spider-Foes with a Psycho faction without any synergy, but now we're saying that they have an identity. It's the Traps faction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you play Traps with them, or do you just play the 2 tactics cards and Doc Ock with Green Goblin and call it a faction eventually? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, who do I pick in a list? Who do I take out of faction to help with the trap faction? I don't know.
Okay.
Because that's when I'm team building, I'm going, okay, is there anybody in the game that's going to help me do this that's not already here?
Rocket's got traps.
Mystique has traps. Punisher has traps.
Well, I don't know if those are traps, but yeah. I get what you're saying. They blow up shit in your face. No, yeah, I think I see a play style with them, but yeah, it's definitely not nearly as defined as some of the other ones. I don't know if it's a strategy as much as just like a tool set they have.
Right.
It's kind of like the rerolls within humans. Like, yeah. I understand that it's not a roadmap to victory.
That's my like Spider Foes. I'm like, okay, cool. They have this going for them, but that doesn't help me select things. That's my problem with. That's when I say identity. Or like synergy, right? I'm looking for something that happens because of this, and maybe we're spitballing a lot about Spider Foes because all we have is their cards. We can't put them down on the field yet to find out what they really do, but it goes back to my original argument when we were talking about list building for Spider Foes. You put all the Spider Foes in it, and then what? Like Wong and Lockjaw?
But every faction kind of starts there.
There's some factions that clearly shouldn't. And
X-Men, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we found that out after a couple games. Right. Like, we were like, yeah, this is trash. Like, it's like, all my models are bad. Why is this true? That's becoming less true as more models come out, though.
Inhumans is another similar one. X-Force is weird because they're all fantastic models, just the really bad team ability. And Cable's too expensive, probably. But
yeah, so I don't know. I'm trying to find what is the lesson we've learned here. Basically, is what I'm trying to come out of this. Like, did we just complain for an hour about these models, or I think they have like an identity. I like we said, I don't think that identity has anything to do with winning the game. It's more of just what to expect. They definitely, specifically Spider Foes, definitely feel like more of a attrition faction. So do the Inhumans, but I just don't know that they have enough of it. Like the Web Warriors fight 'em up identity feels more like cohesive than either of these two factions.
Yeah,
like. I know how Spider Foes will beat you to death. I do not know how I know how Web Warriors will beat you to death. I do not know how Spider Foes will beat you to death. I don't know how you'll win a game with Inhumans other than random variants. I don't know. I don't like Inhumans. What do you think, Jeremy?
I think the game is interesting in that all the stuff we talked about, that's good and great, but just the way it's designed, I feel like half the time, the perfect list can fall to a random bunch of dudes that just roll slightly higher sometimes and just get lucky with a pickup every once in a while. So I think it might seem that it's very, very important to have an affiliation and keep it tight and all that, but I think at least over half of the time, it doesn't matter that much. Do what you want. Play something fun. Yeah, that's kind of my conclusion.
Yeah. I would say in most matchups, it's going to come down to a lot of player skill and dice rolls as opposed to like what you actually brought specifically, which is probably saying that the game's pretty well balanced.
Yeah, it is true that I've broken my back trying to find Captain America Avengers synergy, and then at the end of the game, I was playing it back in my mind. I went, so I worked so hard to make sure that I was going to get a lot of like value out of a day unlike any other, and I think I saved 6 power that game. Like that's like, you know what I mean? Like
I've counted it up before, and I think I saved like 23 power in one game. I'm pretty sure I lost. It's just like, I don't know that it mattered. Like anytime you're using that many abilities in Avengers, it's probably because you're losing. Like you don't use Bodyguard when you're winning.
And that was actually the point. I counted 6 times that I needed the power because I didn't have it otherwise. Yeah. That's what I meant. Like, yeah, I probably used it 18, but almost every like just like, wait a minute, I really needed it like 6, I think. That enabled me to do something else. And 5 of those were all Black Panther.
Like, yeah, I definitely would be careful not to overcommit to your leadership ability. That can be a bit of a trap sometimes. Like, just because somebody says, reroll 1 dice when dodging, you're like, oh, I gotta take all the people with high physical defense. Well, I don't know that's what that means, but like, don't oversell yourself. Like, don't take Black Bolt and then 100% commit to dumping all your power on one guy turn 1. That's probably not the way to win the game. That's probably a way to do something really dumb and waste a lot of power and time. But yeah, I think some affiliations are meant to just kind of be we're slightly above average people, and I think that's supposed to be like Spider Foes and X-Men and Inhumans, and I don't know that it comes across very well. I think it generally just feels like you have a lot of overpriced models. But some people want to just I want everyone to contribute, and it's like, well, there's a lot of affiliations that is not going to happen, like Defenders, Avengers. Like, there's a lot of good affiliations where you're going to have models that just kind of stand around sometimes, and that's just like the way they're designed, because they put a lot of their eggs in 1 or 2 baskets, and they just kind of like let the other people hold points for them.
Here's actually
focus their power.
Here's actually a faction that I will say right now that I've never seen anybody play the other one, but Brotherhood. Everybody loves it. It's a super powerful, it's a super popular affiliation, but it's really just Magneto affiliation, because Brotherhood doesn't fucking matter. It's Magneto the affiliation, and then because I've never actually seen anybody put Mystique on the board, even though I think her affiliation power is really strong. I've never seen anybody do it because they only want to play Magneto.
Well, Mystique's just not very good. I like her leadership. I think it's interesting, but I don't think she's a good model.
I think you could pay 3 points to play a sub-average model if you wanted the leadership to win you the game.
Sure. Well, but a lot of people play Brotherhood because they love Magneto, and so like when you think Brotherhood of Evil Mutants or Brotherhood of Mutants or whatever you want to call it, you're generally thinking it's like, all right, well, I want Magneto and Blob and Toad and Pyro, and it's like, well, 2 of those aren't out yet, so I've got Magneto and then like the rest of the crew. Well, you're a fan of Evil Mutants because you like Magneto generally. And so it's like the dream they've had that I get to play Magneto in a miniatures game. This is amazing. And then you get him on the table and he's fun to play with. And so they generally just don't look back.
But the team, you don't pick members of the Brotherhood because they synergize well with Magneto's team identity. Like Magneto, I will argue that the Magneto affiliation, or rather Brotherhood, doesn't have... Mystique Brotherhood probably has like a list to take advantage of that, but I don't think the Magneto version has a list to take advantage of it. It's just,
I mean, Richard was playing Freedom Force for a while. I think he gave it up recently, but like he was playing the Mystique leadership in Brotherhood for like a couple months, I want to say.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think it absolutely has an affiliation. An identity. I think that list can take advantage. The way you construct that roster could take advantage of Mystique's ability. I think you just put Magneto on the board, and then 1 other Brotherhood model, and then a 3rd model, or maybe 2 other Brotherhood models, and a 4th model. But I think that's what happens to play Brotherhood with Magneto. I don't think they have an identity. It's just Magneto will be better than your models.
Well, like his leadership is get more power, right?
That's
just all his leadership is.
Yeah,
well, that's just Cap's leadership.
Yeah.
And you've spent the last 6 months of the game trying to put models with him to gain benefits.
Right.
Like, all his ability says is get more power. And so we're talking about the same leadership, basically. They just get the power in different ways.
No, I think it's actually more like... I think Magneto's is more like She-Hulk's. I think A-Force is probably I think the most comparable faction is probably A-Force. Because A-Force, you're getting a power every time something happens, a lot like Magneto is. Whereas... Cap,
they are similar, yeah, I give you that.
Because Cap also, if you're not playing models that take advantage of it, you can get almost no power out of his team ability whatsoever. Whereas you'll always get power from She-Hulk. You'll always get power from Magneto, like period, full stop.
Yeah, you'll always get power from Magneto. You'll pretty much always get power from She-Hulk. Well, it's hard to not to unless She-Hulk's dead,
right? Or
your opponent's ignoring you,
right?
But yeah, like the only time you don't get a bunch of power is when you've already won, so it's kind of moot. I agree with that, But yeah, I think the Magneto leadership definitely isn't complicated or interesting, but it is powerful.
I think it's
that amount of extra power is a big deal.
100%. Like She-Hulk and Magneto's power generation is a monumental game softener, right? It greases the wheel. It makes the game so much more forgiving when you always have power to do what you want, because you're just playing the game. For the same reason as Guardians, their racial, I guess, identity, because it's not really their team affiliation, but their identity also has extra power. You just always seem to have power to do an extra throw in there. So, I think that it's a game softener, it's a wheel greaser. It'll make that kind of thing. It'll make the whole game easier because your opponent won't have that advantage. But I do not think Brotherhood has a clear identity of other than they'll have power. That's not really But the thing is, it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to, because they have Magneto and some other Brotherhood model that'll do, and they're going to do really well because Magneto is so strong. And I guess it's just Black Bolt for one less point is not nearly as strong, and so he doesn't have I guess because the identity there feels like a crisis. My point being is that in this game so far, there are factions that don't have identities where it doesn't seem to be a crisis because their characters are just strong enough to make it work anyway. That's not Inhumans.
The Magneto leadership is designed around attrition, they're supposed to kill people,
right?
And then the Mystique leadership is designed around scenario. It's almost an exact mirror to Cabal.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It actually is very similar to Cabal. You're right. They're very, very similar to Cabal. The win conditions, yes, I will say your win conditions are very clear with them.
I think Jeremy's about to pull his damn hair out. He's like, "Can we stop talking about this?" I feel like we're like ships in the night here. We're really close to the same spot, but we keep missing each other for some reason. I mean, some affiliations, their theme is to kill people. That's just straight up how it works. And so I don't. It's certainly not interesting the way they go about it. From a fundamental standpoint, it's not like Web Warriors, or the attrition version of Web Warriors is very intellectual and placement oriented and combos and synergies.
Mobile,
much like with what would you say?
Very mobile.
Yeah. And then Wakanda is very similar. It's they're going to use multiple effects from their people to make their attacks higher quality and put them in good places while also controlling you. It's where some affiliations like Cabal and Brotherhood are just I'm just going to get close to you and murder you. That's my strategy. It's kind of like Kador. It's I have big axe, chop big axe at enemy. That they do it, but they do it really well. And so they're not fancy about it. I do think that's true, but I think it's the same identity or similar identity.
But and that lets me pick models. That lets me that gives me a guide.
And we don't have that with affiliations like Inhumans. You don't know what to do with it other than take models and do what the cards say and try and have a strategy. They're like a blank slate, I guess you could say.
Jeremy, does that make the Inhumans worse?
Does it make them worse?
Does it make the Inhumans worse that they don't have
they don't have an obvious objective that they accomplish? What do they do other than be models in the game? What's their strategy out of the box?
I just want to ask this question.
Man, that's a good question. I have no idea. I think everybody else does things better than them with models that are cheaper than them. And
so you think they're just terrible?
I think their models are okay in other other affiliations. I think they're actually solid in other affiliations. I don't get what's the point of their affiliation. And then sometimes when you say, okay, well, they don't have models or they don't have things that you like. However, there's usually some nugget in there. There's one or two redeeming qualities of the affiliation. Nope, it doesn't get better.
Lockjaw. It's Lockjaw.
Yes, but Lockjaw in Inhumans doesn't help.
Do you want to know item 2 on their savior?
Oh, go.
Last minute save. That's item 2.
Lockjaw and last minute save.
Last minute save is not Inhumans.
Those are the two saving pillars of their faction.
But
conveniently, neither of them are Inhuman related.
But that's what he's talking about. Like, there's no nugget that says.
No, I'm agreeing with them. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that because they don't have like a defined objective that they, or I guess a objective in the game that they accomplish well, they're kind of a blank slate and they don't have a lot of overlapping synergies that are required to have like other people in their affiliation to use. Like they don't have a Proxima and Corvus synergy. They don't have a trying to think like Shuri and the other Wakandans or anything. Like there's no like, well, if you have these two models, they really work well together. Like a gosh, I'm trying to think of something else. There's a ton of them out there. Like Wong and Doctor Strange, you know, somebody to take the edge off for you. Then because of that, they kind of just get broken up and cannibalized by other affiliations. Like you were saying, just take the models that are good in another affiliation and just use their abilities in a better spot. Because they don't have anything tying them together. They just basically get broken up into mercenaries.
That's a really interesting point. So maybe that's what we learned here. If you can't find a nugget, if you can't find, I like that word, if you can't find like value somewhere in the faction, then the good models in that faction should definitely be in just some other list. That's a really good point. I like that.
Yeah, it's a combination of not having like an area of influence within the spectrum of the game where it's something they can really like do well, and they also don't have overlapping synergies that tie them together. Then I think they just get broken up and taken elsewhere. Because you'll just like the models that are good at scenario, like what's her name, Medusa, that could kind of move people around. Like you'll just take her in a faction like Web Warriors or
Criminals.
or Wakandans or anybody that does up close fighting with board positioning. And the same thing with Lockjaw. You'll put him in Defenders or Blackwater, somewhere where you need a cheap support model that will impact the game and be a scenario softener or something. Like, and so you have all these like choices, but none of them actually get used anywhere. It's like in a card game when there's like a colorless card that's really strong, even if it's supposed to be played with something else, it's just getting played everywhere because it is no requirements and it has no restrictions.
Circle of Protection red.
Yeah. Well, that at least costs white. Yeah. It's like Soul Ring. It's like, well, Soul Ring's there so that the green guys can get to their big creatures faster. Well, you know what you can also get to faster? Your 3-cost things. Thanks. And you're like, we might have made a mistake. Like, oops. Like, what did we do? Like as soon as, oh God, what was the fucking card? Like, any card game where you have, like, a cost to include, like, weirder cards in your game. Like, Netrunner had, like, an influence where you had to spend like allegiance points to bring in new cards. Well, if the best card in the game costs 1, guess what? It's in every deck. Like, it doesn't matter.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of the fact that they don't do any specific thing well, and that there's no like hard synergies or like connecting points, that they just get broken up. I will say I think that there is a playstyle amongst people that is, I want a blank slate and I want to make it my own and do my own thing with it. And you just take a bunch of like slightly above average models and you go do stuff with it. Like, I'm going to play an in-your-face bruiser type list. Well, you could do that with Inhumans. It probably wouldn't work very well. But if you supplemented it with the right models, like if you brought in like, I don't know, Lizard and Sabretooth into Inhumans, yeah, you could probably make it work. And I guess they have Ronin and Beast technically, so that also works. So yeah, you just bring in, like, lean heavy into that strategy, and you're kind of making it your own and designing it, like, to play the way you want it to play based on how you season it to taste. But yeah, I think it certainly is less grabbing than going, I have Web Warriors, here's what they do. And you're like, oh, cool. This really interesting board manipulating faction that can exploit weaknesses and gang up on people. That seems really cool. And I have a lot of control over what's happening on the board. Where you're just like, this is my mercenaries list from War Machine. It has average stat models at average cost. What would you like to do? And you're like, I don't know. What do you do? I do everything. I have everything in the game. All my stuff is fairly costed. What would you like to do? And you're like, well, I guess, what's this faction do? And you just move on immediately. It's like, I don't want to dive into that pool right now. The problem with Inhumans is they're that blank slate, but they don't have enough models to choose from, really.
I actually really like, this is one of the reasons why I was thinking about Jeremy's comment. I really like it. I think this comment was very clever. The idea of like a nugget, like some reason to play, is because if we're focused only on models, it is kind of hard to play because they built this game to be, potentially factionless, right? They built it so that the models can fly back and forth. But the one thing that they did not restrict, like they put certain cards, restricted period and affiliation, are the tactics cards. So I was thinking, for example, of Inhumans, when some of their tactics cards came out, we were really excited, but there really is only one that is just Inhumans, I think. I think all the others are tied to one of their...
It's the Attilan something,
right? There's the... Oh, sorry, there's more than one. The Inhuman Royal Family, that's the one where they spend 2 and rerolls.
Power or something? Oh, yeah.
Do you know how much I hate the fact that that's a king and their royal family? I hate them so much.
Well, when it comes to monarchies, there's almost always inbreeding. So that might be why they're all, like, can't speak and stuff.
Inhumans,
they also have the Terrigen. They also have the Terrigenesis card. So Inhumans do have, like, a nugget in there, which is the Terrigenesis.
What?
I'm just saying, if you wanted to play Terrigenesis, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have things that do stuff, but they don't have a lot of them in any one particular area. Like, they also have, like, the card we just mentioned, the Royal Family card, where you get the 1 reroll a turn. That's an attrition-based card, too. Like, they're just scattered all over the place. They don't have an identity. Like, that's what we were talking about.
Right.
They do a little bit of everything. It's not like they don't do anything. They just don't... They don't
A-Force is better in humans. That's it. Better in humans.
Well, I mean, yeah, because you don't have to take Black Bolt.
Well, no, also because all of their nuggets, all of the things that say A-Force on them, are all clearly about doing this one thing. Like, getting up in your face, brawling, and, like, you can't move me, I'm going to get defensive buffs for a turn. Like, it's about taking turns away from your opponent. You're taking options away from your opponent, because I'm playing A-Force, and then, always having the power to do more damage back to you than you're doing to me. Like, that's a really, like, clear... A-Force thing that A-Force is getting.
I see that. I will tell you, though, I know there's something that you just said a minute ago that I liked, and I know Jeremy likes as well. When you said that this game was designed to be factionless, that is definitely true. They built it with 0 factions in the game. There just happen to be some affiliations.
Sorry, you're right.
Got him, Jeremy. I fucking got him.
I've been trying really hard. I've been trying really hard all episode.
I noticed you got a lot of them right.
Been trying really hard.
Jeremy is trying to break us of the term factions.
Yeah.
Much like when we say ranged attacks. There's no such thing as a ranged attack in this game.
So,
it's the range of the attack.
I know that this is a slightly extra topic. But I feel like maybe this is not an extra topic. This is just like a conclusion for this one. Basically, I think this is instead of identity, which is where our conversation kind of started, and it got kind of muddy, and we started chasing our tails. I think it's gotten to the point where, like, I like this word nuggets, right? There's some factions with nuggets that are clear.
Right.
Like,
you just can't say faction, but you're allowed to now say nuggets.
Sorry, affiliation. There's some affiliations with clear nuggets.
No, I don't think you did it.
Piles of nuggets. Huge nuggets. And there's some...
So you're saying that the biggest problem with the Inhuman affiliation is that they're nuggetless.
I think it's that their nuggets are made of like random non-rare gems. Who gives a shit? Like, it's it's kind of like the Inhuman Royal Family and the Terrigenesis card. Like, both, like they have some nuggets, but they're not useful. There's no value to them, right? There's no way to trade them in while playing the Inhumans.
I got a term for you. It's fool's gold.
Pyrite. It's all pyrite. Yeah, that's what it is. Fool's gold.
Of course you would say pyrite.
That's what it is.
Fucking idiot.
It's a mineral, not a metal. And so...
He's in here, well, technically, according to Webster's. Like, shut up!
I would not say that. But, the A-Force, Cabal, Avengers... they all have these clear nuggets in there, the clear things you're supposed to do, either maybe printed on their team affiliation card, or in their tactics that say you only get this if you're a member of this faction, and it's this, and it all works together to create a positive effect. And that's why there are some lists out there that just feel like, what am I supposed to do with this? And it's because they don't have nuggets. This is an affiliation-less game with nuggets. And if you got no nuggets, there's no reason to play it.
It's probably also a product of the fact that because they don't have an obvious identity or nugget, apparently.
Collection of nuggets.
Collection of nuggets. So what is a collection of nuggets? A bushel?
A bushel.
A bushel of nuggets? All right, it's because there's no bushels on the nuggets.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't give them a try or stick with them as long as they might if they did have a more clear and obvious identity or strategy built into the affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
And because that, people don't probably get as good with them as they get with the other affiliations.
That's true.
Meaning that it kind of perpetuates itself, and because the other factions are more popular, they will stay more popular because the reason they are popular is because of the design philosophy. And so I think it's probably true that the Inhumans are both probably balanced within the game, but the play style that is attracted to their affiliation is more rare, I would say. They will probably get less table time, meaning that they will be less experienced players, and or the odds of finding an experienced, good player with Inhumans is going to be a lot less likely than like Brotherhood or Cabal or so and so. Like, they're going to be one of the mainstream factions. Yeah, so I think that might just be kind of like why everyone's like, well, no one plays Inhumans. Why is nobody playing Humans? Well, they're terrible. Well, maybe they're not terrible. They just no one around here has that playstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody wants something that they don't want raw clay. They want something that's already like shaped into a vase that they can kind of finish off, or maybe a bushel of nuggets that they can put down somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I like
a cord of nuggets.
Yeah, a single cord
of nuggets.
I was thinking of, I'm excited to play X-Force, but they have one single nugget. It's a pretty strong nugget, but they have a nugget. And
what's the nugget?
Pretty sneaky, sis. Their tactics card that gives them all super stealth for a turn. That's their
well, I thought their nugget, like their really like hold us together thing, was the strength of the fact that they have the best affiliated tactics cards in the game. Like, if you just put all of their affiliated tactics cards up against any other affiliation, they have the best like whole bench. It's so deep.
They have one nugget. It's pretty sneaky, sis. But they do have...
The other cards are real bad.
But they do have other tactics cards they take because they have 3 regenerators on their lineup. So, like, they do have other tactics cards that aren't technically X-Force cards, but they become good with their list.
They just heard our complaints that there weren't enough tactics slots. They want to make sure that wasn't going to be a problem with X-Force.
Right.
And so they just made sure all the cards are fucking terrible.
The point I'm trying to make is, like, that if I was excited to play X-Force, or if anybody was excited to play X-Force, you just have to know you're playing with one nugget. You've got one reason to play X-Force, and it's a card that's literally printed in another faction with a much more clear identity. So, like, you're playing with, I guess, half a nugget, or one nugget that has less value because there's less demand for that nugget.
It's an itty-bitty little nugget.
Yeah. So
it's like a kernel. We'll call it a kernel.
Yeah, single nugget kernel. So...
tune in next week for our glossary chart.
And that is it's kind of, I wish that's kind of sad. And the reason why I find that's kind of sad is if you are a really big Magneto fan, you're really going to like this game. But if you're a really big Cable fan, you're going to be able to put Cable on the table. Sure, it's affiliationless game.
I'm actually going to stop you here.
I don't
we
like these
don't know Cable's bad. This is all theory craft.
No, I'm saying X-Force doesn't have any nuggets. I'm talking purely from a nugget standpoint. I'm not talking about are they bad on the table. I think they're fine.
I disagree. They're an obvious attrition faction. Everything they do says fight people.
I don't care about their identity.
Everything they do.
We started this conversation with identity. I'm past it. I don't actually think identity really exists.
Well,
in this
their
game.
Nuggets are they kill people.
Sure. No, that's not a nugget. A nugget is a reason that says X-Force. A thing that says bold text X-Force. X-Force gets to do this because Cabal has a card that says bold text Cabal, kill something with high health. It has a text that says that, but only Cabal members get to make use of it. So you're going to play the whole game with that card. So you're going to build your list. You're going to build your strategy. You talked about it in our game just last Thursday. You took the card, and it was a dead card because it didn't have any use. It was a dead nugget.
Because everybody had 5 hit points.
Because everybody had 5 health. But that's the point, right? That's the nugget.
So you're saying in that game I played nuggetless?
You played nuggetless. Yes, you just play. You didn't.
This is so confusing. I hate this.
It's not confusing. A nugget is defined as something that says affiliation name. Only affiliate characters get benefit from it.
Jeremy, do you know what really clears things up? When someone is confused, yell, "It's not confusing" at them. That's what clears it up the fastest.
I also back.
You must be. Parker, have you ever
get
considered being a teacher for a living?
I don't yell at my students, but I do explain things, and my explanation was clear and concise. You were too busy giggling to listen to it. The point is this: there is. It's sad. It's sad that X-Force doesn't have. X-Force has one nugget that's less value. It's sad.
I'm listening. I just can't stop laughing. Parker, so good at teaching.
Oh.
Oh man. All right.
And
okay.
I know you guys hate the Inhumans as a faction, and so you don't find it sad that they have no nuggets or very few, maybe none at all. And so you think it's happy. You're glad that no one plays the bullshit that you think is stupid. I get it. But there are people out there that might like Inhumans. There are people out there that might like X-Force, and it is sad that there is no nugget for that bold-faced word, in the game, or maybe there's one less value nugget, the bold-faced word. Yes, you can play Medusa, play Black Bolt.
I did not realize when you brought up the whole nugget conversation that you meant nugget was affiliation-specific only stuff.
Yeah.
I understand the concept of that, but there's still the very important part to me when I brought up that topic of overlapping synergies. That's still very important. Like the fact that you're compounding the effectiveness of something by adding more of it. Like Wakandan does rerolls, right? They can reroll everything. They have multiple pushes. Like that's kind of their identity. Is they have a little bit of board control, a lot of attrition to back it up, and then Web Warriors is lots and lots of board control and also some rerolling. And then if you move over to Cabal, a lot of the things they do say kill people, right? They've got Dark Rain, they've got Cosmic Invigoration to do more attrition work. Their leadership ability is get more power when you hurt people. Everything they do, even if it's not like faction specific necessarily, it works because of like the core engine of the affiliation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's important as well. And so talking about X-Force, the characters in X-Force are all just attrition monkeys, right? You've got Wolverine, Sabretooth, Deadpool, Domino, Cable. Cable is obviously a little less so because he's a little more support than fighty, but he's still like his point is to win the attrition war. That's why all of his abilities exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have a stack of attrition models. And so I understand what they're trying to do. And even their leadership ability is kill people better, right? Like that's their whole, is to get an attrition advantage. That's everything all of their models do is get an attrition advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And much like kind of we talked about Web Warrior or Spider Foes earlier, it's not as defined as Cabal is, but I do think that's fair. The only complaint we've had about them is that we think Cable's overpriced. And so I don't know if we're correct because nobody's put all of the things together to see if the stack of chips is better than the cards say it is. Like nobody's tried it. We don't know how good that one reroll is.
Mm-hmm. But I think I agree with you. They do have an identity, but what they don't have is, I guess, we keep using the word nuggets.
I just didn't want to say specifically that, like we said, well, X Factor would be good, but we think Cable's terrible. Like, I just wanted to bring up that was all theory craft,
right?
and not actual games repped.
Right.
Where Inhumans, we have actual games repped.
Yeah.
Multiple people have tried the affiliation, and all of them say, man, these models are expensive.
Yeah. They're also not cohesive. And
exactly.
And they don't have any nuggets.
X-Force is very cohesive. They are an assassination faction. They go kill people.
Right.
But you're right, they don't have anything that says, well, X-Force people do this. Like, well, yeah, they don't have that.
They do have one. They do have one. It's just also in
they have a delivery system, which is like criminals kind of have a delivery system, but they're not really there to win the attrition war. They're there to lose the attrition war slowly enough to win on scenario, which is a very weird affiliation identity.
Mm-hmm.
It makes very little sense to a random person, but it works very well. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's played criminals is like, yeah, this works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very simple leadership ability that's so powerful.
I think I'm willing to put this conversation to rest. I feel much better about it, and I'm going to be able to go back into list building with a much clearer idea of what I want to do. I think now, even this, I know this may have seemed like a runaround, but it actually gave me a lot of clarity.
This feels a lot like the end of an episode of Rick and Morty, where like, was there a lesson here we were supposed to learn? I was like, I'm not going to figure it out. Like I don't know what the final synopsis on this was, but I think if you listen to it, you'll understand kind of what we were trying to say.
I think
we kind of talked about a little bit about play style. We talked a little bit about like faction objectives and like how they accomplish victory within the bounds of the game. And we talked a little bit about synergy and stuff. And Parker started talking about his nuggets, how big they were and what quantities. And I got really confused for a bit. He yelled at me a lot. And so I'm not sure if you got anything from him. I'm not sure if you got anything from Parker, but listen to the words I said a lot. It's probably good.
Yeah, Brandon's really got diamonds in the rough here.
I do. They're pretty rough, but I like to polish them up.
Yeah.
All right, I was kind of leaning between two different episode titles. I've definitely picked it now.
Got it.
Uh-huh. All right, is there anything else you guys want to say before we wrap it up? All right, well, this has been Brandon.
And Dr. Mantis Toboggan.
And Jermagor Constagon, as always.
And this has been The Gang Gets Nuggets. In parentheses, why is everyone naked?
So what are we going to call this thing?
I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing, mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just going to put down infamous.
So I haven't played any games this week, which means it's a very off week. Normally I've played at least two games by now.
Nobody showed up for your birthday on Monday?
No.
Oh.
I just drank all of Richard's beer and sat there alone.
I've been there.
I mean, I'm not big on have to do stuff on your birthdays. It's just a fucking day.
My family never did a thing for birthdays. Not one thing. Like, when I was a kid...
They didn't even get, like, say happy birthday or anything?
My mom
would just, like, acknowledge that it is your birthday?
My mom would say my mom would say happy birthday, and my dad would be like, your mother tells me it's your birthday. Now...
Your dad was very Ron Swanson about birthdays.
Yes, he was. The only thing that we did get to do is we got to... have friends over, and it's not because like my parents were crazy about not having friends over, but we lived like almost 45 minutes away from my school, and so everybody and all my friends lived in the town where the school was, so like it was really hard for me to ever like have friends over to my house. But that was the one time of the year that my parents would figure out how to get friends over to our house, and we would have a sleepover. That when I was like sleepover age, that was the one thing that happened on my birthday was a sleepover.
So like
but
17.
No, that would have been when I was
17.
5th grade.
5th grade. So 17.
No one came over to my house when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I don't think I had a single friend at my house ever. And I actually moved closer to. I always went out. Mm-hmm. I never ever had anybody over at my house. Not that I actually. That's really weird that I think about it. I don't think anyone. Only like one person ever came over to our house for any amount of time, and that person saw my father naked, and that was the reason why.
Oh no,
Parker, we have very similar childhoods.
Yeah, my brother brought over a friend, and I was downstairs in the basement playing Nintendo 64 at the time because it was almost every evening. And when I was downstairs, and all of a sudden I heard my brother's friend, like that, and I was like, shit. Because I know what just happened. I heard my dad like tump 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 across the floor above me. He just walked by butt ass naked, just go into the fridge to get a drink of water.
He
or
just
whatever.
Walked around the house naked
All the time, constantly.
He just had a house full of boys. I guess it's okay.
Yep.
That's definitely weird. That's like registering on the weird scale.
My dad was not a naturalist, but he had a big. My dad was not a naturalist, but he had a big fuck you to like social conventions. If he was in, we owned a house in the woods because he wanted to be able to walk onto his front porch and piss in the wind. Like he wanted to be able to do that. And if anybody wanted to come by, he wanted to be able to bury him in the backyard. That is who my dad.
Very Ron Swanson.
Yeah, he is very. My dad. When I saw that show, I was really late to get to that show. I said, "Dad, you need to see this show." And he loved Ron. He thought Ron had a perfect view of life. Like he was exactly what my dad does bury valuables in the woods. When Ron Swanson makes that joke, he's like, "I don't." It's like all the gold I have buried across town, or do I? Like that.
Yeah, he's like.
That phrase, my father
definitely moved that.
My father absolutely. When he went on vacations, he would. When I lived in Lawrence after I left the house, when he went on vacations with my mom, I would have to go back to the house to feed the dogs, tend to animals. He had random animals, and then I would also have to check up on a few of his hiding spots to see if his valuables were still there. I was one of the only people entrusted with them, and he told me I never checked that he moved them all after he told me where they were.
He told you where they were.
That he would move them later, because he literally has crooks of trees where he has jars full of cash and barrels, like hardcore ammo crates and barrels buried in the ground full of guns and ammunition, water, fuel. He's a pack rat, and he is everything you've heard of that guy. He is that guy, and yes, he walked around my house naked, and he thought it was hilarious that John, my brother's friend, saw him, and John also thought it was funny because if you knew my dad for 5 seconds and you saw him walk through naked, you'd be like, "Oh, this makes perfect sense." Of course he does. Of course he doesn't put on clothes unless you make him.
I can only remember one time after like I was really young having a friend over, and I got in trouble because he came. We had just gotten off the bus. This is why I lived in Alabama briefly. We had just gotten off the bus, and the bus stop was literally on the corner of my house's street, and so like you take 3 steps, you're in my yard. So I was like, why don't you just come over and we'll watch that movie I was telling you about? And so I open the front door, we go and we sit on the couch and we start watching the movie. I don't think anything of it. And my parents come home about an hour later, and he has to leave, and they're mad. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, they had left their drugs out on the fucking coffee table, and I didn't consider that like an abnormal situation, and so it didn't even register to me that would be a big deal to somebody that wasn't part of our family. And so I got yelled at because I invited a friend over, and they saw all of their drugs. I was like, great. So I was never allowed to have friends over after that. I was like, okay.
I don't know why, but some reason in the 80s, early 80s, all I did is see like naked adult like fathers wandering about my friends' houses. I can't tell you how many I've seen, but it just wrong. Just stomping through at midnight to get a snack, just hanging, just It's terrible.
Hanging dong.
Mhm.
Jesus. Ugh. Did they not invent underwear until the 90s? Is that what happened?
I remember my stepdad would walk around in a robe a lot. And it was one of those, like, typical, like,
surprise!
You need to close your robe kind of things. But, like, it wasn't abnormal if you're like, okay, well, he's wearing a robe. Probably don't look directly at him when he's walking around just in case. Like, don't know how closed that robe is today. But, it definitely was not that abnormal. People were just more naked when I was a kid, I guess. Is that wrong to say?
I think it's true.
I saw so many more naked people as a young person than I have as an older person, and that's actually starting to upset me now that I think about it.
I'm telling you, me too. Were people doing it on purpose?
I remember when oh my god, I must have been like 5 or 6 years old, like way back when, first house I was growing up in. And, like, we had a little, like, apartment set up in the basement. It was a finished basement. We lived down there. My grandparents lived on the top floor. They would always have friends over. And so they were having, like, a little dinner party thing. But it was a hot day, and they wanted to run the AC because they were very frugal. And so they would just all take their shirts off. Like, so there was, like, 6 old women in bras and 2 old men not wearing shirts. And I just come upstairs, I'm like, what's going on? I was like, oh, it was hot. I'm like, okay. And I just walk out the front door to go wander around for the rest of the evening like you do because I'm a fucking 9-year-old kid or whatever. It's like we would just be gone all day.
Huh.
A lot of freedom. A lot of freedom in the 80s. I don't know what's going on there.
My dad.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute myself for just a minute, but you guys keep going.
This was not the 80s from when my father. As far as I know, he still parades around naked at the house. I don't go there at night. But I'm assuming he does. My dad.
I've always had so much shame driven into me. Like, at no point, like, there's always a towel, a blanket. Like, there's always something. Like, I just can't. That isn't happening.
My wife's the same way. Like, she's very much the same way. I don't walk around naked because I don't find it very comfortable. Not comfortable like my emotionally or comfortable like physically. I don't like it. It's not fun.
They loved it in the 80s. They loved it.
Yeah.
Men love that shit. Just like all of it. Boom. What time is it? I'm going to get a snack. I hear the boys are up. I hear the boys are playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to fucking just wander about the house looking for stuff.
Yeah. We actually, it's funny that we actually lived next to a nudist colony, a naturalist colony.
Oh, God.
Because we were deep in the woods. My dad never partook of them, but there was 100% a nudist colony. Everyone around there knew it because the gal, it was a husband and wife that owned it, but the gal was the naturalist, the big-time naturalist who ran the club, and she was also a horticulturalist. And so their property was gorgeous. It was like it was in virgin woodlands in the Kansas River Delta, and they had manicured the whole thing like a golf course. So of course you could walk around naked in these trees, and you couldn't be seen. After 30 feet, the forest was so dense you couldn't see it. But you walked around in this beautiful, pristine little spot they had, and it wasn't a meadow. It was all covered by trees because you can't walk around. This is explained to me. With nudist colonies, you always have a lot of tree cover because you're walking around naked. You don't want to get sunburnt every time you walk outside. You want to walk around in trees. And so this gal she was a horticulturist, so she planted all these exotic trees. The only reason why I know about all this now is my brother bought that house. Now it's 2 people removed because the woman sold it to another person, and eventually my brother bought it. So he's now living next door to my parents. But he bought that house, and they're finding all this stuff from where the nudist colony would, have these big barbecues, and so they have this like pit that's now been totally overgrown, but it was there before, and so all these outdoor activity like areas where the naturalists would hang out and do their thing naked, one with the forest and the trees and whatnot. My dad was not a naturalist, but he said in his own way, he would still go natural. So no, I didn't have anybody over at my house. That's the moral of the story.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about birthdays, weren't we?
Yeah.
I had like birthday weeks. Like that was the only time we got gifts and like I don't know, attention at all during your birthday and at Christmas. But that's it. You got 2 days of the year and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But we got a lot. Like birthdays were cool.
Yeah, my wife's family is like that. It was a big adjustment for me being married. The first time I ever had to be like a member of her family throwing her a birthday, because she expected like that. She expected a serious to-do on your birthday.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, you're older.
Yeah.
I got her. I'm not a monster. I got her a present. You know, I was like, "Here's a very thoughtful present." It wasn't an asshole present. I'm a good give good presents, but I was like, "Here's a really thoughtful present, something you never get yourself." And she goes, "Oh, thanks. So where's the other, things?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Other things? You got a present?" And she's like, the whole day devoted to me. I was like, "What?" In my house,
Yeah.
I got a present, and
You messed up.
up.
Oh, you mean a balloon?
Yeah. I got you flowers last week. Does that count? Like, nope. No. Okay. I guess we're doing this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I let people at work know a month in advance. Like it's like a month. Like I need attention for a month. Where are we going for birthday dinner? Where's birthday lunch gonna go? Oh yeah. And the rest of the time, whatever. But
And see that's often
Jeremy's birthday is like Hanukkah; it just keeps going.
it does.
well. See, and
12 full fucking days.
And oftentimes, those are the ones those are the contentious relationships I hear about, like people who love the intense birthdays, looking for that kind of attention from people who don't do it, and so it's this lack, and it creates like this negative situation. But what's I think even more interesting is when I have a birthday, and Sarah wants to do something really nice for me, and so she really goes all out, and she creates this kind of fantastic situation for me, and I don't celebrate it, right? Like I struggle to celebrate it. I go, "Oh, thanks, that was really thoughtful." And she's like, "Aren't you going to be like excited about the birthday?" I was like, "It's just Wednesday." it's not that fantastic. I'm going to keep doing what I was doing. I'll keep working or being with the kids or mowing the lawn. She's like, "But it's your birthday." I go, "Yeah. Tomorrow it won't be. The day after that, it'll be 363 days to the next one." And it blows her mind. I find it fascinating anyway. I think it's wonderful how different people can look at exactly the same occurrence and give it completely different meaning. Birthdays are a great example. I think it's absolutely like the quintessential like part of the human experience. It's something so very innocuous that everybody can talk about it, but it explains so much. The fact that you can celebrate that day so differently.
Yeah. Like I say, it was the only days we found happiness. The rest of the time it was pretty much abuse and men walking around naked or something. I don't know. But yeah, that was the one time where it was like, I want to have my friends over, and then I want to go to an arcade, and then I want to go to like the pizza place, and then we're like, go to the park. And it was like, yeah, cool, that's great. Every other day was, nothing you love will be happening at all. But on your birthday, you got to do stuff. That's it.
Oh, to see, that's interesting because I had the opposite. I felt very much like I felt I had onus and control. What's the best way to put it? Like I felt like I had every day was an awesome little adventure. Now my parents didn't bend over backwards for me or anything, but they gave me a lot of freedom to choose things that I wanted to do. We also lived on a farm, which was different because on a farm every fucking thing is an adventure, right? Like you go outside and yeah, everything seems so exciting and fun. Even hanging out with the animals was exciting and fun. Doing chores was kind of fun. I guess that's one of the big reasons why it's different. It's not like my girls go outside into this yard and there's the same two trees they always see. unless they have they could use their imagination, but that's all they got. They got to use their imagination. In my house, you go outside and you can find anything. It could be anything out there. You just go in and pick a direction and start traveling if you wanted to, and unless you got your leg caught in a barbed wire fence, you're probably okay.
If you're watching any of the Olympics, because no one else is.
My wife's crazy about it, so yes, I've been watching it.
Jesus. I can't get into it at all. I have no heroes to root for.
That's what I... Go ahead.
I need somebody to root for.
That's the thing about the Olympics. I was actually talking to her about this with the whole Simone Biles thing going on. I don't know how familiar... You said you haven't been watching it. You know of it?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't... I was talking to her about this. I'm not an apologist, but I think the weird, quarter decade, hero worship that happens to Olympians is kind of strange. How it's almost like they get, they're like Kleenexes, right? They just get the shit, they're so important. At that moment, you gotta have it. When your nose is running, you're about to sneeze, you gotta have a Kleenex. But as soon as you use it, it does a fantastic job for you. You throw it away, and you never think about it again. That is, so many Olympians. That's their experience. They have literally 20 seconds in the spotlight, and the whole world's looking at them, and that's it. That's all. It's gone. Such a weird kind of existence. When you think about a professional athlete and any other kind of public professional athlete, so many of them get to experience, a whole career, day in, day out, doing that job. And these Olympians, they're doing the same kind of time. They're putting in the monumental amounts of effort, and then they only get seen doing it for 20 seconds. Literally, some of them just jump off of a diving board into the water, and that's it. That's the only time anyone ever got to see them do it, is at the Olympics right then. Gymnastics is a similar thing. And, God, the amount of pressure those people must be under, it's got to be insane. It's got to be absolutely insane. How much pressure do normal people feel when they have to give a presentation in front of their, employees? How terrifying that is for some people to think that you have to do it, even if it's something you've been practicing your whole life. There's no way to have the Olympics and then not have the whole world watch it. I think that's the point of the Olympics. It's the only point of the Olympics, because you don't make any money doing it as an athlete. The countries don't make any money doing it. The Olympics don't turn a big profit. So, there's no money in it. It's just for prestige for the country hosting it and for the countries who are able to participate. That's all it is. So because that's all it is, there's got to be, like you said, the construction of heroes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it sets them up. It sets them up for failure. It really does.
Well, imagine being the very best at something in the entire world, and you're under 20 years old. Yeah. What else is ahead of you, by the way? You've already done the most hardest thing in the whole world, and you're the best, and then all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore, and you'll never be the best at anything again. Your psyche can't take that at any age, let alone as a teenager. That's insane.
I read this really interesting post today. The guy was talking about how he was watching, the story play out with Simone and his kids, and he started going, I don't know. I feel like if I was an athlete, if I was a competitor, I would want to do it so bad. There's like Carrie Strug, and her kids asked, well, who's Carrie Strug? And he showed, Strug's, that iconic moment where she does the vault and she hurts her leg really bad, and her coach, says keep going, keep doing it. And so she does it again, and she wins, but she breaks her leg terribly. It's horrible. Mm-hmm. She sacrifices her body for the win on the Olympics. in 1996, and at the time it was this big hero story. But he said watching it under this context, watching it today with his daughters next to him, his daughters immediately went, "Oh, geez, why did she do that?" And he immediately went, "Oh, crud, why would she do that? Like, why would this young woman like sacrifice her body for this?" At the time, it seemed heroic, but now he looked at it and he goes, "Okay, well, maybe she wanted to, but why the hell was the adult that she was putting all of her trust in pushing her to do more?" He was watching her like fall apart physically, and he told her, "Keep going, keep pushing your body till it breaks." He's like, to say nothing of the fact that she wanted to or not, who cares? The fact that she looked to him, and everyone in the world saw him say, "You can do it, keep going, don't stop." Ugh. And he said it put, like, he went into the conversation, wondering how Simone could give this up, and he left the conversation going, "Good for her," like saying, "No, I'm not going to sacrifice my body and my mind for a medal." But there's stories like that. There's all kind of stories like that of different Olympians who have broken themselves during the game, and that's it. Like, their whole careers are over. Like, they're gone. Or there was this one gymnastics girl who went, I think it was just Soviet. She went paraplegic.
Oh, really?
Sorry, not paraplegic. Quadriplegic. So quadriplegic for the rest of her life.
Wow.
During the Olympics Games, because she just pushed her body after she thought she was uncomfortable, and the coaches and sponsors pushed her, and she went into the competition and ended up hurting herself. And like, that was, and you're just like, ugh. no, not worth it. Not worth it.
It's a weird thing, for sure. What's really strange is also watching it when there's no one in the stands.
Mm-hmm.
It's just bizarre.
It's a little bizarre, yeah. Yeah, it's just, it is a little bizarre. There's no fervor, like it's just like the cameras and, other athletes, that's pretty much it, watching you. And here's the other thing for Simone Biles. It's not like anybody has any question in their mind of how strong she is as a gymnast. She's won so many competitions.
Is this the short African American girl?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. She's like actually considered the greatest Olympian so far. Like I know Phelps is crazy, but like they're talking about how like her progression at this point in her career, she's actually going to outdo him.
Well,
I heard anyway.
I don't think she can ever outpace Phelps, because unlike swimming, gymnastics is a very short shelf life. You can't do a lot of you can't keep going back to the games. But she's considered the greatest gymnast of all time already without the Olympics, because of all the international competitions she's won. Like, she's completely like, her dominance in every international competition for the past like 8 years or something has been complete and total. So the Olympics was really just a place for the greatest of all time to do gymnastics some more. And that's what people don't understand, is because they don't watch gymnastic competitions all the time. But she's already
like super young people.
Yeah, she's already crushed the gymnastics world completely. She set every record for the gymnastics world. And so if she decides that during the Olympic Games she doesn't feel fit to do it, who cares? Like, that diminishes her accomplishments in no way. The only thing it could do is it could potentially let down the possibility for the rest of the team. It's possible, like they got the silver medal. So the only thing it could do is it could impact the team standings, but that's the only thing it could do. It can't like diminish what Simone Biles does. Pulling out of one competition because she thought she might get hurt, like that's yeah.
Yeah.
She's already beat all those people many, many times. It's all the same people.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to step away there. I had to do a shitload of typing, and I did not want you guys to hear me fucking drum rolling in the background.
Yeah. But I'm very much a. I'll always be in the corner of the athlete, always, when they make a decision for themselves like that. Because I've seen too many situations personally in my life, and then also watching it, where young people push themselves or are pushed by adults.
Yeah, I saw that clip you were talking about where the coach is like, yeah, do it. And like she clearly has damage to her leg and like does the flip and lands it and then like is carried off the mat. Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, yeah, that's a legendary moment, but like that's kind of dark too, considering these are unpaid athletes.
Yeah.
Like she literally just ruined, like she maimed herself for an unpaid volunteer role. Mm-hmm. Like that's like think about that in any other context. Remove Olympics from it, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the coach that told her to do it, he goes on for the rest of his life being a professional coach, right? He used to making money. Like her sacrificing her body didn't diminish his career at all.
Gonna not make a joke about Olympic coaches right now.
Yeah, and then you to put on top of all that, then you layer on the whole sexual abuse thing, right? You layer all that. You just put it like, and even if this situation with Simone has absolutely nothing to do with it, it's just another layer of mistreatment and discontentment that and pressure, right? That you don't need when you're trying to do something that you enjoy, or trying to be the best in the world. Like you don't need that. Also, I'm always, whenever somebody wants to be a competitor and that kind of stuff, I always assume they're being, if a young person is competing in a sport, I assume that they are being mistreated in some way, and I assume that they are getting the short end of the stick. I just make that assumption. Maybe one day somebody will point to me, the young competitor that has their finger on the button and isn't being manipulated or taken advantage of in any way, and I'll go, all right, we found it. There they are.
Have you seen Frank's Little Darlings?
Yeah, something like that. Frank's Little Darlings. That's what it is. Because he doesn't diddle kids.
That little boy in the beauty pageant, he was there for himself.
Yeah.
He was very excited.
I guess the one kind of kid like that I have seen before that just seems like they just have every security in the world. Maybe I'm wrong. Is Winter Games, like half pipers, like those kids, those half pipe kids. One time we were watching the Winter Olympics and they were showing. The kid was like, he's like, how are you? You're doing this. You're so young. You're only 15 years old and you're at the Olympics. How is this? He goes, well, I have a half pipe in my backyard. And so Sarah and I both pictured like he must live in Montana or something, and he must like pile a bunch of snow, or maybe they dug a big hole with him and his brother. They show his house. It's like a palatial mansion. In Breckenridge. Yeah. They own 30 acres. The half pipe is in his backyard. They don't just have a half pipe. They have a downhill slope. That's the backyard to the house. The house looks like a lodge, like a ski lodge. Mm-hmm. Like they walk up the hill in the morning and just come down they just go up and down the hill all day long, and then sip hot cocoa in their multi-million-dollar mansion. Mm-hmm. And then you go, oh, like that's why this kid is 15 years old trying to get a gold medal at the Olympics, because he's never had to worry about a damn thing in his entire life for any reason. Like the only thing he's ever had to do is snowboard whenever he wants in his backyard. So that explains a lot.
It's the hockey thing. Richard's always going on about hockey, but the one thing you said that was interesting is like you can tell who's going to be a good hockey player just looking at their like information sheet on the person. Do you know which stat is the most important for if they're going to be good at hockey?
It's their birthday, right?
It's their birthday.
Yeah.
Because they get into hockey and they're placed in a younger age bracket based on if their date of birth is on which side of the line.
Right.
And so basically, I can't remember where the line is, but it's not at December 31st. It's It's like somewhere in July, I think.
Mhm.
So if you're born the day before the cutoff or the day after the cutoff, you get dropped down in age bracket. And so you just have an extra 9 months practice on everybody.
Mhm.
And because of that, you become the starter. And then because of that, you get more practice than anybody against better competition. And your experience just compounds and compounds and compounds. And that's how you get like Wayne Gretzky like type people.
Right.
It's just because like, well, they've been doing it for the last 30 years basically compared to everybody else.
Yeah, when they take the NHL and is Canadian Hockey League, is that also NHL? Is it a different hockey league?
They have a separate hockey league,
Yeah.
I believe.
But if you take those leagues and they did they did a big data study of like what makes a real hockey star, and it was a weird number of people all born in the same month. It was just like,
yeah,
why
it's like,
is
well,
that?
if you were born in like July, you win at hockey, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
like is this like a fucking astral sign? What the fuck's going on?
But as it turns out, if you're born with a multi-million-dollar parachute in Breckenridge and you have a downhill slope half pipe in your backyard, then yeah, you get to eventually go to the Winter Games because you're pretty good at snowboarding, as it turns out.
All right, let's get into this because we've stalled for long enough. Jeremy's already sleepy. I can see it in his face.
Yep.
We got an awesome topic, and I want Jeremy's input. So, Jeremy, stick with us. We're coming in.
Let's go.
Falser statement never spoken.
I wanna know what Jeremy thinks about Blazer. Can I?
Blazer,
I almost did
Taser,
it.
Acer.
Taser
right.
face.
Nuggeted that bitch.
The other episode option name was Why Is Everyone Naked? And both would have been very applicable after this episode.
Oh my god.
I wish it could be maybe we can do a dual episode name. Like in parentheses to the break of dawn. Like Parker knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Ooh.
I'm gonna do that. We're gonna have a dual episode, or we're gonna have an episode sub name.
Oh Jesus.
That was good. That was a good stuff. We kind of wandered there for a bit in the middle, but
Well, I felt like I like that topic because
I felt like we kept getting to a close spot, and then one of us would take a tangent or some random like segue to a slightly different topic, and we would separate again.
well, we were trying to describe something that was really hard to describe, which is why is it that some affiliations feel so difficult to pin down, and that's got it. I liked it.
I think we should definitely just call Spider Foes the Yu-Gi-Oh faction, because they're all going to be very proud about what they have and yell repeatedly that you've activated their trap.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. Like, they're the people that like to yell at you, like, whatever their shit does, like you've never played the game before. I like to refer to these people as Yu-Gi-Oh players, because if you've ever been to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, unfortunately it tends to be a lot of very socially awkward, like, young adults who think that you play the card game like you watch the TV show, and in the TV show they're constantly announcing how badass their shit is to each other, and then making completely like random statements about dumb shit that everybody knows, like it's a big deal. It's like, the moon has summoned more water for my fish creatures. Prepare to be destroyed. They think this is how people talk to each other. And so they go to a tournament, and then they're like, I played the moon! And you're like, that's not how you act in public. Like, you can't do that. No one's going to ever speak to you. Like they're going to leave the room as soon as they see you're there. Like, you can't do that. And so, unfortunately, it's not just Yu-Gi-Oh! I just say Yu-Gi-Oh! Because once I explained it, everybody's like, yeah, I've seen an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! I understand that's how that works. Even more so than, like, the Pokemon TV show.
Yeah. People who
I
like
just,
Pokemon don't.
Yeah, it's like Pokemon, they have, like, reasonable volume conversations with each other occasionally. And it's like, they'll yell, like, they're yelling commands to their Pokemon, not screaming at each other that my Space Marines have leadership 8! So you're like, I don't understand how this is news. I've been playing this game since before you were alive. And so, like, it just moves on to the next topic. But they never get it. Like, they just don't get that it's not a fact screaming battle. It is a, like, game between two people. And so, yeah, a lot of the time you'll see... And, like, the most famous example at the store, because this gets brought up a lot, we end up going back to the example. There's a scene in the first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the fish guy plays the moon card. It summons tides, and so his fish creatures are really powerful. So he's running Yugi over, and then Yugi plays the giant stone soldier. And he's like, oh, my fish can defeat a stupid stone monster. He's like, oh, yeah? I order him to attack the moon, and he pulls out his sword and he stabs the moon, and the moon breaks, the water subsides, and all the fish die. It's the most ridiculous scene I've ever seen, because this was before the producers got feedback from the customers, because the show came out in the US right before the game launched in the US. And so a lot of kids around my age bracket were watching the show like Saturday mornings, and then the card game came out. Like, we can play the card game that's on TV. We lost our fucking shit over it. Like, it was such a big deal. And so that scene, like, that was one of the times in the show where they just didn't do what the cards do, and the kids hated it because, like, I don't understand. It's just Stone Soldier can't attack the moon. It doesn't have hit points. Like, it's these are all cards in the game. Like, that's not how it works. And it really frustrated people. And so from then on, they got the feedback that kids didn't like the action in the show not matching what happens in the card game. And so from them, they had to do what the card said from then on. It was a really big deal. It, like, totally changed the formatting of the show. And so, yeah, it is pretty funny. But yeah, so I refer to a lot of 40K players and other games as well as Yu-Gi-Oh players when they just scream, like, facts at you, like you're completely oblivious.
Attack.
He's like, all right, I'm going to roll for my, orc boys to charge your Tau Firewires. I'm going to overwatch you because my guys have machine guns. You're like, I know. I expected this to happen. Like, that's when I said I'm going to charge you, I assumed that's what it was like. No, okay, you're just going to yell at me. All right. Like, that's just like how you have to suffer through a game. It's really unfortunate. I don't know how to bring up to a person that they're being a Yu-Gi-Oh player without just saying you're a dumbass, and don't do that. It's a really hard topic to approach with people. What do you think, Jeremy? Have you ever played a Yu-Gi-Oh player?
I have not.
What? Never?
No. Well, of course I've played the people that act like that. Sure, a few. Not many though.
Yeah, I mean, we generally leave the games that they're in, unfortunately. Like, you kind of run away. Well, it's kind of like, I've talked about this before, I think, on the podcast, but it's the barrier to entry concept. The easier it is to play a game, the more, dipshits join your game. Kind of like World of Warcraft or League of Legends. Like, these games have zero barrier to entry. It costs nothing to start playing them. There's no learning curve, really. And so you just jump in and start being an asshole to people because it costs you nothing. And so just like Call of Duty is another perfect example. Where are you going to meet more 14-year-old dickheads than on Call of Duty, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, that's where they are, because it costs them nothing
where they
to
are.
This game.
They grow
That's where
up.
they are. It's like a breeding ground, yeah, because there's no barrier to entry, there's no punishments. And so in a very advanced game, like War Machine or like Netrunner or any basically difficult game that has a long learning curve, like it takes 6 months or so to get to the point where you're a competent player. Any of those games, they don't survive because they join, have zero success in the first month, and they give up and quit and go do something else because they don't want to put the effort in to learn, which is the same. They don't want to put the effort in to learn how to socialize with their opponents. And that's at least the way I've always perceived it. And being that I spend 40 hours a week at a game store, I see a lot of it.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I see a lot of moon attacks happen. Just saying.
A lot of moon attacks.
Yeah, there's a lot of moon attacks. I could point out to you 10 people on a Saturday that are Yu-Gi-Oh players.
Jesus.
So if you ever find yourself screaming the name of your rules at your opponent non-ironically, and he's not laughing, you should probably stop.